What's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, host of the worst named show on the entire planet. Rekieta Law is a small law firm in central Minnesota. Guys, today I am honored to have a very special guest. This show has been a very long time coming, from my opinion. I don't know if my guest had any idea that it would happen, but I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for years now for this one. This is an interview with Lucas Gerhard. He's in the back. I'll bring him on in just a second, but I wanted to quickly refresh the story. Lucas posted something on Snapchat and the government came down really, really hard because apparently the government forgot that there's an amendment in the Constitution somewhere, I'm not sure, buried somewhere, that says you can say some stuff and they don't get to come after you just for saying stuff. So we're going to talk to him. His lawyer is also present, Mr. Phil Ellison, who has been on the show before. Great guest, smart guy, full of insight about the legal system and fighting the machine that does exist. And I can't wait for it. So what the heck am I waiting for? I'm going to bring them on right now. Welcome to my very honored guests, Lucas and Phil. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great, Nick. How are you?
Fantastic. We have no snow yet here in the north. So
yeah.
You stop talking like that. I will kick you off this show, sir. I'm dreading snow. I hate it. I hate it so much. But no, I'm Lucas. I am great. Thank you for asking. It has been kind of a whirlwind for me. I went on a long vacation, then came back, and school's about to start, and all my kids, like it's just schedule, buy stuff. Oh my, it's terrible. Anyway, but no, I'm great. Thank you for asking. So first of all, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show. I've been wanting to talk to you since this thing started, of course, and finally, you're able to actually talk, because you've been in one way or another, and actually in a whole lot of ways, shackled from your ability to really communicate with the world at all, right?
Yeah, I mean, my bond provisions entailed that I could not go on the internet, and I could not use a technological device without the internet, right, Phil? I'm pretty sure those were some of the restrictions. I couldn't leave the house. Unless for like a doctor appointment. I really couldn't do anything. I couldn't talk to anybody. I had friends come over,
Yeah.
But I'm at a point in my life where my friends were getting careers started and getting wives and houses and crap. So people slowly but surely kind of stopped coming, and it kind of became a normal thing, and it wasn't like it didn't really affect me in the later stages of the thing, because I just kind of got used to it. I got used to talking to nobody. I got used to not being able to leave the house, not being able to do really anything. But in the beginning especially, it was really hard, but
Man, I don't know how you do it. Like there were Congress people elected and unelected while you were locked down, and you might not have ever heard of them because of the provision. Well, I didn't either, but because of the provisions of your bond, like that's what you had to do. So we're going to get into kind of the main goal I have really is to get your story from your perspective, going back to really 2 years before the incident, the infamous Snapchat photo of doom. So covering kind of that backstory, because I think that backstory is a really critical element of the overall narrative here, and then talking through the posting, your arrest, and all of the stuff that happened then, and then of course going through this period that you just described where you went back to like 1981 or something. Effectively, there's no like mass global communication for you. You're just a guy doing his thing at home. And then I want to talk about where this goes for you in the future. Now we have a feature on this show where people can chat and ask questions to me, you, Phil, all of that stuff. But I got to put out a prefatory statement on this. And I'll explain here, guys. One thing that I always do when I have a guest who is in ongoing litigation is we've got to put out the disclaimer that this show the goal of the show is to have zero impact on ongoing litigation. So there might be some topics that cannot be fully discussed. So if a question is asked and it's one of those topics, either Phil or I might say, we're going to stray away from that one. And then, we're going to let the litigation finally finish out. I misunderstood. I thought that it was completely done, but it turns out that you still have a sentencing hearing coming up at the end of next month. Is that roughly accurate?
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. If Phil wants to go into that, I'm not a legal person, guys. I don't know anything about like legal aspects. I know what's going on, from a normal point of view, but Phil can probably explain that, I guess.
So just very, very briefly, is that anytime you make a deal with the government, no matter if it's really, really good, which is what Lucas will talk about today. Lucas got a really, really stellar deal because I feel it's just because a combination of public sentiment, hopefully the good lawyering, I would hope too, and a combination of just wearing down the case to the point where we're going to be ready to go to a jury, that it just caused the parties to reach a resolution that is going to be it was very, very favorable to Lucas, and it took away a tremendous amount of the risk of unknown that the jury could do. And of course, there's a number of steps that have to happen beforehand, and then the final hearing will be at the end of September, which will close this case out permanently and for good.
There's a first of all, very diplomatically answered. There's a lot to that that has gone on in this case. I have some opinions that I might say on a later stream or a short video about kind of what the deal means. Let me be very clear. My opinion of this deal is that it's fantastic. It's the type of deal that any defense attorney would want to get for their client, especially. And part of that answer, I'm going to leave to Phil here from the chat. Steph says, ask Phil if Whitmer is replaced, if the new governor could pardon Lucas. And this is an interesting part of the deal, is that my understanding is Lucas would never need a pardon as part of this deal. Is that correct? Because there's not actually a conviction.
There's not actually a conviction here. There will actually be no conviction at the end of this thing. So to call it a sentencing hearing is just, I think, a shortcut here, but it's essentially a long-term dismissal, if you for lack of a better phrase. And before we go any further, I've kind of seen the comments. Yes, I know I look like Andy Richter, and the wall color is blue, guys. It's blue. Okay, so now we can get that out of the way. But there's a set process with any of these things, regardless of if you're pleading guilty, been found guilty by a jury, or you make a sweetheart deal with the prosecutor where you end up getting essentially no conviction on your record. Everybody goes through that same last process unless you're found. The only exception is if you're found not guilty by the jury, and then you're free to leave immediately then without any further hearings in that respect. So everybody else has to go through a couple more steps, whereas the other, anybody else has to go through a full jury trial, get the not guilty, and walk away at that point. And if you get anything other than not guilty, you're going through the same process that we're going through here.
Yep. And the other thing is, if you have a plea deal that results in a conviction, for example, pleading guilty to a lesser offense or pleading guilty to the same offense, even if you set up a deal with the prosecutor on what recommendations you'll make on sentencing, the judge has a lot of leeway to actually change that out. This type of deal, again, in Minnesota, we call it a stay for dismissal, and they're very, very rare, and they usually only happen in misdemeanor cases or sometimes gross misdemeanor cases. So to have it in a felony case with serious implications like this one is really, again, it's the type of deal that you would definitely want to take, because there's no criminal conviction at the end. Everything will be tightened up, and we'll get into the deal itself as we get to that stage, because I do think it's a really interesting thing, and Phil, you can explain the law on it when we get there. But without further ado, Lucas, take me back to what, 5 years ago now? You're like young in college. What's going on? Where did this for you? Where did this event start? I guess I picked the starting place, but I think it's probably the same. So where did this start for you?
Well, So 5 years ago, in 2017, I decided to go to Lake Superior State University, which is it's a campus in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I'm from there. I'm from the Lower Peninsula down by Detroit. Um, but
How did you live through growing up near Detroit? Like I've heard of
well, when I say near Detroit, okay, don't get me wrong. I live in Oakland County in a near in a I don't want to say specific. I don't want to dox
No,
myself, but
don't do
yeah.
that.
So but it's not like Detroit, where this is an upper middle class area. So I'm
So
not gonna.
you're outside of the Fallout zone where like the super mutants are running around like in Fallout 4 or whatever.
Lucas, why don't you just go ahead and give your full address for the
Yeah.
for the viewing public here, right?
You know, I
So-
don't. You know, I don't even care, honestly. Like
No,
at this
don't.
point, what else? What else can people do to me?
No.
I mean, I've just sacrificed 5 years of my life for persecution or whatever. So
give Nick's address. Give
Yeah.
Nick's address, right? So
121 Main Street, Detroit, Ground Zero. So you killed the auto industry by living there. Okay, so that's good. No, okay, so you're from outside of Detroit. You go to school in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and
Right.
And yeah, so we're in 2017. So
Right.
how's that going for you?
So I mean, it was I'll be honest. I didn't want to go in the first place. I didn't want to go to college. But my job was not my job. My goal was to be a policeman, and a lot of places out Detroit hires policemen at 18. But I didn't want to really go there, so I wanted to wait till I was 21, and that was primarily like the primary reason I wanted to go to college is just kind of bide my time until I aged up into the acceptable range, and I figured I may as well get a degree while I did it. So I went for criminal justice law enforcement, uh, and Lake Superior State has a MCOLS program there, which is basically Michigan police officers kind of training program that certifies you to be a police officer. And so I decided to go there. And when I assumed when I went there that because I grew up, my dad was Marine colonel, and I know the Marines have a brotherhood, right? And I
Right.
assumed that law enforcement was the same way.
Hmm.
In my experience, I'm not going to tell you it's not, but when I went there, I was surrounded by these so-called brothers of mine that were also law enforcement cadets or whatever you want to call them, and I can get into that a little bit later, but I'll say that the primary people I had to deal with up there were people in the same program as me, which was unfortunate and honestly a bit shocking and surprising. I always thought that they would have my backup.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, you muted.
I'm good. I'm good.
Now you're back. Okay.
I got a really crappy headset. My whole setup is bad. I'm sorry. I'm not a
No,
YouTuber.
you're fine. We can hear you. That is, I mean, you're doing great.
Okay.
What I was just going to say is my personal experience with as someone observing these two groups, right? When you've got the military, specifically Marines versus police, there's this other politic that gets involved with police, particularly police unions, and the way that works, where I feel like it gets a lot more backbitey, and it gets there's less of that brotherhood. I mean, maybe with your your partner or whatever, you develop a good bond, but I feel like it gets to be like any other kind of workplace that's very competitive, and the seniority rules and everything kind of make a mess of that whole thing. Whereas the military, you just kind of have a clear structure, and everybody's like on particular levels, and you know where you are. But that's just my observation. So yeah. Anyway, you're in this program.
I don't want to say that policemen don't have brotherhood or anything, because I'm not officially I'm not certified or anything at this point, so I don't know. That's just my personal opinion at this point in time, from based off my interactions with people who were going into law enforcement. Which, by the way, majority of them are policemen now, so take that for what you will. Anyway, so I went there. I guess it was pretty typical in the beginning, about a month in, though, we started classes up, and I took Introduction to Criminal Justice, and we had a quiz, okay, and it was an online quiz, and it was multiple choice, and at the very end there was some sort of a statement, opinion, answer, or something, and it was some sort of question about like women in law enforcement, and it was kind of like preachy and kind of, I don't want to say like bitching or something, but it was kind of like it just hit me the wrong way. Like, you're going
Like,
into law enforcement, like,
not only should women be in law enforcement, but women should be in law enforcement, and just how much should they be in law enforcement and how great it is that they are. That's like how the question is worded. I know this because I too went to college. See, the
yeah,
wording of those questions, right?
I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something just hit me wrong, and I basically just said, I don't know if I answered the question the way I should have, like, actually, but I don't have any regrets about it. I said that, if you can't handle it, then stay out. Just stay out. You don't belong here if you
And that,
can't
I
handle the
think,
pressure.
but like, not to push back, but I think what you just said is actually more harsh than how you answered it on the paper, because I remember seeing the actual answer in one of the early reportings on your story. And if I remember right, and the only reason I bring this up because I like the answer you just gave, but I want to bring up like how mild your answer actually was, because this is how crazy people have gotten. Your answer was pretty close to, women can certainly be in law enforcement. However, we have physical standards, and those physical standards should be the same no matter what gender a person is or whatever. And if you can pass the physical standards and the mental standards for law enforcement, then that's what you should be able to do. And and they shouldn't be accommodated for someone else, because law enforcement is a demanding job, basically, is how you answered that, which is like an extremely reasonable answer in any context except anytime after 2012.
Yeah. I mean, my opinion's changed slightly since then. I wouldn't call myself mild anymore considering what's happened. But yeah, at the time, I always thought I was reasonable with the people. And here's the thing though. This is kind of important to kind of set the stage for how nosy and vindictive and kind of pathetic some of these people are, honestly. I didn't. So apparently, you could actually read other students' responses. I didn't
Right.
even know that. So not only did this person know that they could read, this is the first quiz we ever did, the first month of college. So not only did they know that you could read them, but they went through all the, like, this is a class of like 60 kids or something. I don't know. They went through all the question answers and specifically found mine. They read through all of them, and then they had the audacity to kind of like just screenshot my answer. And then what they did with it was they posted it on Snapchat, and they put a hashtag out. They put it on like this the story for the campus or something, and it was like hashtag fuck Lucas G or something. And and it was kind of like, I didn't know what was going on. I was in my room playing video games, and I get a knock on my door at like, like, I don't know, it's late, and my friends are out, there's a whole line out the door. My friends are out there. Lucas, what did you do? What do you, what do you mean what I do? And he's like, you pissed off the whole campus, dude. What are you talking about? And I'm
Only
like,
all
what?
of
What? I mean, apparently so. So they show me, and you click through it. There's like 50 freaking people, like having a little, I don't know if I can say meltdown at this point. I don't know if I'm allowed to say. Can I say that, Phil? Meltdown? Can I say that?
You can say meltdown, yeah.
Meltdown. Yeah, they had a meltdown over it. Just
Unless
making
they
sure.
weren't and you're lying to us, but
Yeah, bro.
Wow. Last I heard, melting is very, very dangerous in Michigan.
Yeah.
it was the snowflakes, guys. It was always the snowflake portion, right? So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I actually have some of this. And funny enough, in part of the case files, there are pictures of some of those students that did that. I got like 3 or 4 of them. So, I'm kind of getting an echo. Do you guys hear that?
Yeah, I think it's probably coming through Phil, because it's echoing both of us.
all right.
So I blame the lawyer, because all lawyers are inherently tech boomers. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. So it's Phil's fault entirely. Plus, as your lawyer, it's his job to take all of the blame.
I always blame Nick personally, but
Hey, wait a minute. You are in the chat. No. Okay, so you have these people. They go nuts over this thing, and I know exactly what you're talking about, which is weird, because it was the tail end of while I was in school that, at least at my school, that forum post format came in, where a teacher's like, you have to read the forum discussion question, you must contribute like a 3-paragraph answer or something dumb, and I have no idea what any other student ever wrote about anything in college.
And did you
Because
care?
no, dear God.
Exactly. That's what I'm
All I was
saying.
trying to do is go on, clack out my answer, and then go and eat ramen and play video games and fall asleep on my George Foreman grill. Like it's just like why would I ever go through and try to worry about what someone else said in my entire life, but specifically in college? Like I had cheerleaders to go hang out with. Like I just certainly didn't want to read people's answers online. Oh my gosh. Okay,
Yeah,
so
we didn't have cheerleaders at Lake State. At least I don't think so. I mean, I don't know.
if you did, you probably didn't want to hang out with them. No,
Probably not.
anyway, so you got this people having a meltdown over your answer
Yeah.
that they went and had to like proactively dig up because
Yeah,
they're
so
apparently that bored.
yeah, and you know, to a certain extent, I don't blame them for being bored because there is nothing that. I mean, this is the middle of bumfuck nowhere, pretty much. I'm like, it just is. Not saying anything bad about it. You know, I liked living up there, but there is just nothing to do. There really
Yeah.
isn't.
I went to school in Marshall, Minnesota, man. The only thing there is to do is to get blown over by the wind because there aren't even trees. It's terrible.
Well, yeah. But anyway, so that happened. Okay. Essentially, so after that night, I went to class next morning. I didn't really care. I didn't, you know, you'd think that I didn't notice until later that people thought, you know, I should be afraid or something about it, or you know, intimidated by it. But I just kind of, you know, went to class the next day and sat down and I don't know if anybody even knew who I was. I mean, some of them probably did, but you know, I just carried on, you know,
Mhm.
like I did the whole time. Uh, and this is kind of a running theme for me, which ended up being a problem because had I been actually worried about it, maybe I might have actually taken screenshots of who had said what, kept note of who those people were, so I could report them and do exactly what they did to me, which would probably help me because essentially it just looks like I'm getting reported in mass and nobody else was doing anything wrong, right? Because
Right.
this incident happened many times. I had contact with the public safety department like it seemed like every other week, and the city police came too for other things too. I don't know exactly which ones they came for, but they had made contact with me over things just like this. I would say something mildly political, and somebody would get offended by it, some sensitive person, and
And they would call the police?
yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, I wouldn't even call the police if I saw a fight outside my house, and they call the police for a mean message. You know, um,
If there's a fight outside my house, I get out my cell phone. That's $1 million. You gotta get that thing on World Star. No, it's crazy.
uh,
I can't fathom ever call again. Like I'm so happy you're here because we know this. Me in the chat, we go way back. We know this inherently that there are people who are so broken that they just can't countenance the idea of someone saying something that is disagreeable to them. But to know that like these are college students calling the police over a political comment in school is insane. Like that goes so far beyond my comprehension of how crazy and lost people are.
right. And it's just you know, it, it just bothered me too that people would even have a problem with a lot of stuff I said. You know, I was not an extremist. You know, I was not saying anything like crazy. All my stuff was pretty much mainstream. I was just an average, you know, at the time like Trump Republican kid. Like I just,
Yeah,
you know,
you're right of center, so therefore you're basically Hitler Stalin.
well everybody to the right of communist is an enemy at that school. I'll tell you that.
Every school, all of them.
Yeah. Well, I can only speak for Lake State at this point, but yeah, that school. You know, when I went there too, I was told it was a conservative campus. You know, I was told that hey, CUP, there will be a lot of conservatives here. No, no. I mean, there were, but the thing about conservatives too is that, and I don't get me, I like conservatives. I do. I like them, but when I was there, every conservative I met was say, you know, they would come up to me and they would say, "Hey, you know, I know who you are. I like what you do, and I support what you say, but I cannot publicly show support for you because I don't want to, you know, take any hits myself." And
Yep.
that to me was just pure cowardice, and it was, you know, if anybody had supported me up there publicly or helped me out in any way, I mean, I did have a little bit of help from some people every now and again. I had my people try and find things out for me, but nobody really like went out there and was like, "Hey, you know, Lucas never said anything wrong. Lay off." Right? Nobody really did that in my in my memory. I don't remember anybody doing that. Um, but it was just cowardly, and it kind
No,
of
because well, but what'll happen to me at this college? And
yeah,
it's like college used to be the place. Like when you think back, now of course the roles were flipped, but when you look back to Vietnam, when you look back to the late 60s, the early 70s, like college was the place where you got to voice your political opinion. But as it turns out, all of those people then took over the colleges, they became the professors, and they decided that the other side didn't get a voice.
right,
And so they clothed themselves in the bravery of political dissidents, but it was just political populism that was uncontested by other students, and then they've kept it that way on the same political spectrum for 50 years, 60 years now. It's insane to think of it that way, but that's what's happened.
Well, I'm going to jump in and just say what, and I've mentioned this before to Lucas. I went to Lake State as an undergrad, and I graduated from there 20 years ago.
Right.
And it's funny because how much the difference is from the way Lucas describes what was going on there compared to when I was going there. I mean, it's night and day,
Mhm.
compared to, and I don't know what to attribute that to other than, you know, I think it's a really important who's in charge of your school, in these instances, because the way Lucas has described, Lake Superior State is not the Lake State I went to. I can tell you that was, I mean, and it's just
Right.
interesting to see, what 15 or 20 years has done, a couple change of administrations, and all of a sudden you have, you know, I guess people pushing their particular viewpoints on things that I guess I was never maybe just wasn't aware of it then in that respect. But it's
No,
different.
I think it was very different. So I graduated from undergrad in 2005, and I think it was just a different place because I know all of my professors were liberal for the most part. Didn't matter where they came from, but they also didn't care that I wasn't. Like
Right.
it was okay. We were allowed to engage in discourse. And sometimes, we would vehemently disagree on a topic. I never felt discriminated against or anything by my professors or by the administration over a political comment. And we're talking, my buddy and I were two extremely conservative Christians in a school full of not a ton of very conservative Christians. And I mean, but the worst thing we had to deal with dumb arguments. Like that's it. Like that, we never had to deal with people cyber stalking us or in person stalking us or calling the police over our very dangerous opinions.
Well,
It's
worse. I mean, not to steal your thunder here, they may have thought you were stupid, but they weren't calling the police, right? I mean, seriously.
yes.
I mean, they may
No,
disagree with you, but they weren't trying to punish you for having the viewpoints that you
right.
had that way, right?
It's crazy. Okay, so Lucas, carry us through. So these incidents go on for
oh yeah,
if I remember right, like they go on for a while,
yeah.
quite a while.
Well, 2 years the whole time I was there. I mean, when I got arrested, I couldn't even last the whole day there before they came and got me. So this happened all the way up to the very end, literally to the last second. They had to
Mhm.
drag me out of that school. I wasn't quitting, and that was probably what pissed them off so much is that every time they came at me, they would report me, and normally people would freak out if the police came to them. Most of the time I didn't. And I got the body cam footage for the last incident. Maybe we should release that one day, Phil. It'd be interesting for people to see that. I don't know if we can do that or not, but we'll see. Um, but every time they came at me, it probably pissed them off that I wasn't phased by their onslaught of
Oh,
attack.
100%. Yeah, because the whole point was to be the mob, to
Hmm.
bully you into either leaving or having the right opinion. I mean, that's the goal of it always.
Right. And I just want to reiterate though, it wasn't really the professors that were the problem. I would say, there's three types of people at the university: the professors, the administration, and the students. The administration was, well, I don't know. I don't know if I want to can I?
Well, yeah, but it just
Yeah, okay.
generally speaking.
Okay, the administration was trash. Okay, you talk to anybody who goes
Generally
at.
garbage.
I mean,
Love
like, you talk to any student that went there, and unless they were an RA or something, they're gonna say that that school was complete like garbage, right?
Yeah.
There was they did not help any of the students for any reason at all. They were lazy. They were incompetent. They were pathetic. Anyway,
They
the
let
students were the real
anybody graduate from there, right?
what?
They let anybody graduate from there, right?
Well, they did say they had a saying for criminal justice. He said, "D's get degrees," because if you got a D in criminal justice, you passed. So I mean, it was a not that a lot of people graduated from there because the dropout rate was quite significant. You go there in the beginning of the year, you couldn't find a parking spot. By the end of the year, half the lot's empty. So people left. I lost half my friend group to transfers in my first year there. So people just hated that school in general. They hated the cold. It got down to -50 up there. Uh, the snow was like super deep. I don't know. I couldn't find my car sometimes.
Yeah.
It was hard enough
Well,
being there just for the.
that might be for other reasons other than the snowbank there, right? That the he had too much fun on Friday night and couldn't find his car. It was the
Yeah.
snowbank's fault, right? So,
Yeah, right. No, I didn't have a lot of fun at that school. I mean, I did a little bit, but yeah. So it was hard enough being there with the weather and everything, and just being 5 hours. I had to drive 5 hours to get home.
Right.
And at the time, I had to come home every month for reasons. But so I was up there and dealing with the students. The professors, a lot of the professors I had were quite decent. Not all of them. I had one in particular, Dr. Westrick, who is amazing. This world, I mean, does not deserve such an honorable man. Honestly, he is the most ethical, reasonable. I don't think anybody could ever hate him. He was the greatest guy up there. And if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have stayed. Honestly, he was one of my criminal justice professors.
So it's his fault then.
No, no, no,
I'm
no,
kidding. I'm joking.
no. It's the communist fault. But anyway, so these people, the students, I guess, they were the main problem. They, I guess they just didn't understand what a university was supposed to be about. They thought that they could just live in their own echo chamber, and I was a disruption in the echo chamber, and they did not like that. So,
Mhm. Okay,
yeah.
so 2 years of hounding and harassment goes by. Now, do I remember right? So you're in this kind of this junior cop program with the police department up there, and is that accurate?
Not
Or can you
exactly.
explain it?
I was a cadet sergeant with my local sheriff's office for uh, a year or two. I don't remember exactly the time frame on that,
Local to
but
the college or local to
oh,
where you lived?
to where I live.
Okay,
So
and
yeah,
so would
I
I
was in the unit before I went to college. I was in there in
okay,
high school, and then I went to college, and I was still in it because you age out at 21. Um, but
gotcha.
I never
Now,
quite made it that far because of them. So
right. So they that's what I was going to get to. If I remember right, these people this was not limited to your college activity. They hounded you down at this thing 5 hours away that you did until you were removed from that.
yeah. And I mean, it wasn't. I don't think it wasn't just them. I know that there was a BS tip made to them by a disgruntled ex-girlfriend of my dad's, but
Oh my
there
God.
was it's a mess. It was a mess. Just she just didn't
Uh,
like that my dad was spending so much time with me because I was getting my Eagle Scout, and he had to help out a lot with that. So, but anyway, yeah, this I would I would yeah, they tried to screw with me in any way they could, and they did.
I
Um,
just like that again. It's the reason I bring it up is because that's how horrific this personal crusade that people go on has become. It's not just that someone disagrees with you or has arguments about something on campus. They tracked you down in your far off campus activity to go after your life. It's not just your opinion. They will not stop. They have to destroy what you have and make you conform. And it's Oh, it's baffling.
Well, there was another incident up at college. I was in communications class, and we had to do a speech, and I was doing my speech on law enforcement, and so we were told to bring props, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll just bring some of my like training gear. So I
Mhm.
brought, I got a duffel bag. I had a riot helmet and a plate carrier, and then I also had a plexiglass like riot shield. I carried that
Sure.
on my arm. I walk down, like, I make sure there's, like, nobody, on the campus. 'Cause I knew how sensitive these people were, and there was, like, nobody out, okay? It's a ghost town. I walk to the building. When I get there, there's a, security officer there, like, looking around. I'm like, He's not looking for me, is he?" So I go into class, and, I start my speech. Next thing I know, city police are there, pulling me out of the class and, searching my duffel bag and stuff with flashlights and, uh, basically questioning me about what was going on. And I guess my professor helped explain it to him. But somebody also called the police. They called 911 over a student carrying a plastic shield and a bag.
I mean,
So I mean,
okay.
and this is, I mean, it's just absolutely pathetic.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, we had like camo day for Spirit Day stuff, and I remember my dad's camis with his Kevlar helmet, his flak vest, and a freaking pistol holster, and nobody said a damn thing. I mean,
Right.
these 13-year-old high school kids were less sensitive than these people up at college were. I mean, that's just how pathetic that they were up there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, and they had you in their sights, right? And so any
mhm,
opportunity to harass or harangue you, to interfere is what they took. So
mhm,
this goes on for 2 years. This permeates out into your extracurricular life as well. And then
yep,
the incident, let's move to that. So you've got, and I don't think we're going to tread on any dangerous ground, because part of the agreement that you have, I think, if I understand it correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you admit to posting this particular picture, and the wording around it. Like, so this
yeah.
isn't any revelatory thing. This is a Snapchat post that you made. And so explain this. You're not at college, but you're about to go up. What, and it's the beginning of the school year? Is it
Yeah.
winter time? Like, what's going on here?
So I can tell you the dates. It was August 22nd, 2019.
Oh, yeah, because it was 3 years ago, just a couple days ago.
Yep, yep. It was just a couple days ago. So I was arrested on the 24th, so that was 2 days ago. So just over 3 years ago now. Um, so it was August 22nd, 2019. I posted. So I was just packing my stuff. Okay, I was packing all my college stuff. I had my refrigerator, my clothes, my whatever, and I had it all staged downstairs in my living room. And I had my rifle with me. Oh, I should probably talk about buying the rifle, huh? So, might be an
Yes.
important thing to talk about. So I so I worked a summer job at a restaurant just to get some money to buy a rifle because I've always wanted a rifle. Oh, good logic's here. Hey Joe. But anyway,
Hey, Joe, this is you already had your time. Get
yeah.
out. No, I'm just kidding, buddy.
So I bought the rifle. I always wanted one, an AR-15. So I bought a Colt AR-15 A4, the very traditional style with a carry handle.
Mhm.
I also bought a bayonet for it, Smith and Wesson, um, and a few extra mags, and I bought a bunch of ammo. Really, not that much. Really, not as much as you would think would
It
count
goes
as a
so
bunch.
quick. If you
Yeah,
have an AR, I mean, it's like, oh, there went 30 rounds. Oh, there went 30 rounds. Suddenly you've shot a couple hundred rounds and you just got started. I mean, it's
right,
just, that's part of the that's half the fun of the AR, is how easy it is to just plink off, so much firepower.
right. So I bought that, and I was pretty excited about it. I took my friends shooting with it once or twice. And so August 22nd comes, and I want to bring it up to college with me. And you can't. That's another thing I should hit. Lake Superior State, you can bring rifles to college. You can bring any weapon you want, really. You can bring a sword. You can bring well, not like a explosive device or anything, but
Right.
any kind of legal weapon you can bring. And they have an armory there in the public safety building. There's an armory through two double locked doors into a basement and inside of a locker. So just a big armory, and so I brought it up. Well, I was gonna bring it up, and I did, but I took a picture of it and I made the post, the infamous, post that started this whole thing. And the point of the post, I don't know if anybody ever hit this before. The point was literally just to tell people I was bringing it up so we could go shooting.
Right.
I threw the joke on there as a kind of like extra thing, kind of just to make it, and I don't honestly think it was even that good of a joke. I thought it was kind of subpar.
No, I
It was
give you
it
a
was
D, but you
it
still
was
passed.
it was off the cuff. It was not even it wasn't if let me put it this way. If I knew the whole world was gonna see that joke, I would have probably made it a little bit better. But
But you were just okay. So to be clear, like, so was this a general post to Snapchat, or was it a message to your friends on Snapchat?
it was a story post, okay? So I
I don't know
all
how
the people
Snapchat works because
yeah,
I'm old.
so all the people on my friends list could see it. So it's not like Facebook where anybody can in the whole Snapchat community can see it. It's only the people you have added as a friend
Okay,
that
there
can
you
see
go.
it. So,
Gotcha.
and I had, I mean, I don't know how many people I had at the time, but I've since like halved that number for obvious reasons. Um, but anyway, so I I posted it. I posted a picture of the rifle, and the point was to say, hey, I'm bringing it up to go shooting, and the way I even phrased it should have been a clue that it was a joke. I said this, like bringing this bad boy up. This ought to make the snowflakes melt. And by snowflakes I mean snow. Who the hell talks like that? I don't talk like that.
Canadians do,
I
but
never. Well, that was the A. That was part of the joke. So no. So there's like three parts of this joke, right? And you got two of them. The A was the third part. The A was the jab of the Canadians. I always made fun of them up there. Not like maliciously or anything, but
I do. I maliciously make fun of Canadians because they'll apologize that they're so bad that you have to make fun of them.
I got along with the locals up there pretty well, honestly. And if it wasn't for them, I would have probably lost my mind. Like they were really good people. They you could stop in the store and talk to them for 20 minutes. But anyway, the post. So bringing this bad boy up was obviously referring to the rifle.
Right.
And I was obviously referring to taking it to college, and I never contested that ever. I never contested posting this picture ever. I've always said I did it. I always posted this. And then this ought to make the snowflakes melt. Yeah, I was talking about offending sensitive people. Um, and that's kind of the rhetoric. I mean, I heard the word from Donald Trump. I heard the word from President Trump. I never thought it was a kind of obscure phrase. I always thought it was like a modern political term that most people understood.
It is.
I
It's a common parlance idiom in
well,
American politics right now. Like
you would be surprised. I've talked to like 100 plus people about it, and I'd say only 25% of them knew what it was. Some
really.
people in jail thought it was a racial thing against white people. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I
I was
do
like,
want to make the whites melt. I'm tired of them. They're
I'm
ruining
melting.
everything.
Oh
No,
no.
but
Yeah.
yeah. So, but I agree. This thing it was always a joke. It was
hmm
clearly a joke. It's written as an idiom. I never like when you got charged and I saw this story. That was one of the things that stood out to me so quickly because I believe around that time, I actually had a terroristic threats case here in Minnesota that I was defending someone on, and so I had just read I've just done a bunch of research on terroristic threats and defending them in Minnesota specifically, and what I was defending was way worse than what you said. I mean, it's a guy like banging on a door screaming, "I'm gonna kill you, you MFer," and all this stuff. Like this guy was going off. We beat the charge. Like we still we got around that. I think he pled down to like a disorderly conduct and had a $500 fine was at the end of the day. Like it was nothing. And again, this is a guy he's drunk outside someone's house screaming that he's going to kill them. And it's like that was too hard for the prosecutor to actually secure a conviction on because terroristic threats is it's supposed to be in theory a really difficult crime to even charge or to sustain the charge, much less to actually secure that conviction. So when I saw your case, I'm like, oh, I happen to know all about how this works in Minnesota. I bet it's pretty similar in Michigan. That's one of the things that attracted me to it. And I was like, there's no way on earth that this is a threat ever.
Yeah.
Was my
And
thoughts.
and it wasn't even intended that way. Like so after I posted it, I had about 2 or 3 messages from my friends saying, "Hey, we know this isn't a threat. We know what you mean, but just be careful because we know the kind of stuff you're dealing with up there, and we think that this could cause a problem for you." So I was like, "Oh, like damn, you're probably right." Because I didn't see at first. It did not even occur to me. This was such an insignificant thing in
It's
my
because you're
mind.
normal.
So what I did immediately after I found this out was a few hours after I posted it. It might be the 23rd at this point. It might be the 23rd of August. I'm not sure. I probably is because when I posted it, it was like really late at night or early in the morning.
Sure.
So no, this was the day of the 22nd. I posted a follow up. The very next thing I posted like a couple arrows pointing backwards, to the other snap because the way Snapchat works is, goes left to right, whatever. And I said that post was not a threat. I specifically stated that, and I have the post, and I included it in all my legal, documents. I mean, we made a case about it, and that still was not enough. That was a full, direct disclaimer to anybody who had any doubts about this. And to flash forward a little bit, when it comes time for the girls to be interviewed, they admitted they saw that. They admitted, so they took one of my statements for gospel, and the other one they just threw out the window because it didn't help their narrative.
Right.
Because I have no doubt in my mind they knew exactly what they were doing. They did not believe this was a threat. And
No,
I
well,
honestly don't think anybody did at all
one
the way
of
the school
the
acted.
one of your accusers, and you can call them whatever you want. I'll call them serial harassers. If I remember right, had what I would consider to be, I still don't consider it a threat, but what I would consider to be a closer to a threat picture that she had posted, I believe, on campus holding a rifle, and it said "Stay strapped or get clapped." Is that?
Yeah.
I'm correct
Yeah.
on that, right?
Yeah. So I can't name any names at this point,
No, don't.
honestly.
And I
But
don't know her name anyway. It's not
I
important to me.
so what I'll say is that yeah, it was a picture of her, and I would say she's the main complainant. She is a picture of her literally holding the gun on campus, and with that caption, and it was on Instagram too, so it's a platform you can't, it doesn't disappear. So she took
Mhm.
what I did and took it a step further each and every way. Um, and yet, she had the problem. When she came to testify against me, she said that she felt afraid because she'd never seen anything like that before, and that she was afraid of guns and whatever. And then here she is posting a picture of her on campus with a gun, saying that what she said,
Yeah.
literally referring to death in a way. Which again, I'm not gonna defend her, but yeah. So
No, I'm not defending her. I'm defending the concept of free speech so much that
I am
like
too.
that picture, which I think is more egregious than what you did, I still don't think is egregious really at all. And that's the point, is that your actions are, for me, so far removed from the intent of the terroristic threat statute and so far removed from being unacceptable speech as that this whole prosecution and how this unfolded baffled me.
Yeah, yeah. So where was I with my story? Okay, so I'm posting the
Yeah.
picture. So I posted it. I posted a disclaimer. Um, and then I stay up. I was gonna leave. When I drove, I back then I used to drive it really late at night or really early in the morning because I didn't
Yeah,
like
I feel you.
feeling, hitting traffic, whatever. Drive 5 hours up there. I didn't want to run anybody. So I waited till probably, like 2,300 hours and just was like, oh, I'm gonna leave now. My dad made up the point. He was like, well, Lucas, how are you gonna get in your room? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you got to get a housing key. They're not gonna be open when you get up there. So I was like, oh damn, I gotta wait. So I have to wait an additional, few hours. I leave at like, I don't know, 0300. I don't know, really early, really early in the morning. Okay,
Right.
and
But the idea is you'll get there when the school's opening, so then you'll get
yeah,
in your dorm room.
yeah.
Yep, I
Well,
got you.
evidently I was a bit off because I drove all the way up there, and this point I'm up for over a day because I was packing and I planned to leave earlier than I did, but I didn't leave, so I couldn't go to sleep. So I was up for over a day, and I was already exhausted, which ends up really hurting me later on. Um, So I finally get up there and I get in and I'm about an hour before the housing office opens up. I get to well, hold on. I keep missing my mark here. I get up there, I drive straight to the campus armory building, okay?
I was
I
gonna
drive
catch you on it, but I'm
Yeah, I
glad you
drive
got it.
straight to the armory and I park as close as I can. Um and I'm like 5 feet from the door. Brand new rifle, I don't have a case for it yet. So I just sling it over my shoulder with my sling I bought and walk right in. And that it becomes important later, actually. So I walk in, and there's an auxiliary officer at the window, and that's kind of like a student officer. Um, and she's like, "Oh, I can help check your gun in." I'm like, "Okay, sweet." We open the first double lock door, and I see this guy there. Again, no names, but he was a security officer there, like kind of like the head guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, and I know him pretty well, because I interned with the public safety department for a whole semester there, so I know him pretty well. And he's like, he pretty much was like, I don't know exactly what he said, but he says, "Stand back, I got this," sort of thing. Like he was very, I don't want to say like hostile towards her, but he was very firm for some reason. If it kind of hit me weird, I was like, why? This is kind of weird. She can handle this herself, but he wants to jump in and do this. So we walk down to the armory, and he's like, where's the serial number and all this crap, checking it in. And I'm trying to have a hard time finding all this stuff because I just got it. I didn't know all
Right.
this stuff. And he's like, "Oh, it's right there. Like, look at this way. Put it over here." I'm like, "Dude, calm down."
If you know, then why are you asking me?
Yeah, like,
it's your job to know what to look for. Go do it.
it was very just I don't know. So anyway, we lock it up. Okay. He signed this paperwork, and he's like, as I'm leaving, and keep in mind, this is not a normal stop for any student to make. The only people who stop off the public safety building in the first day of school are people with weapons. Okay.
Yeah.
So he before I get out, he immediately proceeds to put his hand in his pocket and pull out an ID card with my picture on it. He's like, "You're gonna need this. This is a card."
What your audio cut out.
So
Okay.
he pulls it out of his pocket. He's like, "Here's a key card to the campus. We got a new swipe card system, and you need to swipe on every door now to enter it. And here it is." So I'm thinking like, okay, out of all the people, all the 2,000 people that go to this campus, you just happen to have my card in your pocket. Like, are you serious?
Yes, that's
And
weird.
and again, this is not a normal stop. It's not like he should have expected me to be there. So I was kind of already thrown off a bit. Um, and I guess a bit of foreshadowing or whatever you call it. It is kind of strange that somebody who suspected me of being a terrorist would give me access to every building on campus. Just a little side note. Kind of begs the question if they really thought so, or they're just trying to get rid of me. But anyway, I proceed to the housing office, and like I said, I'm an hour early, and I get there, and it's dark. But there's a clerk in there, a secretary or somebody, and she says, "Oh, I can help you over here. Just give me your name." And so I said, "Lucas Gerhard," and she says, "Oh," like with her face lights up, and she walks over to her empty desk. Her whole desk is empty except for one blank white envelope, a single envelope on her desk. She picks it up and hands it to me, and I'm like, "What the hell?" I open
It's
it
like
up.
Moriarty planned your arrival at school.
I pick it up, and there's my cart, my parking pass, and my key, my room key. And I'm like, "What the hell? This is really weird." So I text my dad. I'm texting my dad like, "Hey, something's going on here. Something's off." And he's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
you're just being paranoid." And that's what I got all the time from everybody. I tell everybody what's going on, and they say, "Oh, you're just being paranoid about the school." And I'm like, "Well, they never made a big deal out of singling me out before, so something's going on." But I just continued about my day like I always did, carried on. The next thing I did was I carried all my bags up 3 flights of stairs to my room. I had the same room I had previously. I had a private room, because I didn't wanna deal with any of those people there, as much more
Right.
than I had to. But so I unloaded literally, I was so tired, I just took all my stuff, and if anybody ever sees body camera footage, it looks like a child's playroom because I just took all my stuff out of every bag I had and just dumped it out on the floor. Some stuff I threw in the beds and whatever, but I just threw it all over the floor, and I just hit the rack and passed out.
Right.
So I don't know how long I was asleep, but everybody knows that it's kind of better to stay awake than it is to kind of sleep for 30 minutes and then wake up. It's you're never in a good space at that point. So I was probably asleep for 30 minutes to an hour. I hear bang bang bang, police. I'm like, okay, yeah, bull, right? That's really the police are at my door at first day. So I was like, yeah, okay. I didn't say anything, but I didn't believe them, and they heard it. I heard it again, and I was like, okay, well maybe it's serious. Maybe it really is the police. And so I opened the door, and there's two city police officers and the security officer who I just dealt with, and they're like, "Do you know why we're here?" And I was like, "Yeah, about my gun," because I saw the security officer, and he shows me a picture of the post. He's like, "It's about this or something," and I'm like, "Whoa, Jesus!" Like, because I kind of, in a way, I wasn't shocked. Well, I wasn't surprised. I was shocked. I wasn't surprised though, because I knew that
Because you've
the
been
school
dealing
did.
with this.
Yeah, I've been dealing with these people for quite a while now, and So they're like, "Can we search your room? Can we come in and talk to you?" I was like, "Yeah, whatever. Sure, why not?" Because I was trying to be cooperative this whole time. And that it really pissed me off later on when the police officer in court was saying that I was being deceitful because I was not trying to be. Honestly, honestly, God, I was not trying to lie at all. Um, but I was just so tired and so out of it. Like in this, and if you see the interview, you'll see I was just a mess. My blood sugar was probably screwed up because I'm a type 1 diabetic and I hadn't anything to eat. So they come in, they sit me down in a chair. The security officer stands in the doorway, presumably so I can't leave. The junior officer, which was like his first, literally his first day, probably one of his first calls, he starts searching through all my bags and shit. And then the FTO, like the senior officer guy, he starts interrogating me. Well, I can't call it that. I guess they said it was an interview. So he started interviewing me, I
No,
guess.
you can call it
Apparently.
an interrogation. I
Well,
mean, look, that if cops will say,
I'm making a joke.
oh, okay.
I'm making a joke. I know exactly what it was.
What
They freaking blocked the way. I couldn't get out. I had no idea. I was never read my rights. I was pretty much at the mercy of these guys, and I had to answer every question they asked me. So I did not think I had a choice.
So
And yeah.
Phil, do we want to educate people on when you are under arrest for Fourth Amendment seizure purposes?
Well, I think that would be Exhibit A. I mean, the only thing more, they slapped cuffs on them and said, I always like it when you see it on cops. You'll have like 5 cops giving 19 different contradictory demands. Get on the ground, stand up, put your hands on your head, put your hands behind your back, and of course, it's crazy. But yes, that is. He was, I think, seized at that point, but that's another fight for another day and another issue.
Yes,
Well,
absolutely. That would be the general Fourth Amendment seizure. The first question really is, are you free to leave? Which is why sovereign citizens always scream, am I under arrest? Am I being detained?
Am I being detained? Yeah.
That's the Fourth Amendment. One of the critical questions.
Cops love that question when you ask them that too, right?
Right.
They're like, "Where's the YouTube video? Where's the camera now?" Right? So,
and their answer doesn't matter ultimately. The question is, would a reasonable person be free to leave in that situation? Lucas has laid out a situation where any reasonable person, they're blocking the door, they've got you in handcuffs, they're asking you questions, you're not free to go. So there's. You've hinted at some other issues there, Phil, that I just heard like 4 of them. So that was great. But Lucas, I just have to ask you, what did you learn from this encounter about talking to the police?
Yeah, so I
everyone
learned.
Listen really closely, really closely.
I learned, and I honestly, to an extent, I already knew this because I was going to be a policeman, and I was taking classes for this very thing, but I trusted them because I thought, again, the brotherhood, all that garbage. But no, because they didn't see me as their equal just because I was trying to, go to school to be like, that job. But anyway, everything they ask you is them trying to get you on something. Why would you want to help them get you on anything? They're not there to help you. If I had not talked to them, I doubt I'd be in this position. I really do. I don't know if Phil would agree. I don't know if anybody else would agree, but
I would agree with you. No,
yeah.
We'll say it this way: had you not spoken to them and actually been uncooperative, you would be less likely to be in this position. Doesn't necessarily mean that you wouldn't, but definitely less likely.
Yeah. Wait, another thing that would have kept me out of this too. Funny, and not that I would ever do this, but one of the funny notes of this interrogation was that the security officer actually made the comment to me at one point. He said, "We were not concerned until you actually showed up with the rifle and turned it in." So, in other words, what he's telling me is, if I just left it in my car and nobody knew, I would have been completely fine.
Well, to me, that had this thing gone to trial, like that's one of the statements you would want. This was not a threat. What they determined to be the threatening action was showing up with the rifle, not the communication that's at issue here. Thank God you don't have to rely on that argument, but that is kind of like that statement would be prominently featured on cross, I would imagine. Like, tell us more about how you weren't worried about this communication that you saw.
Mhm.
Well, and then the other interesting part of this, that now I'm going to take Lucas off of this, and the lawyer part of this is when we're preparing for trial on this,
Mhm.
The original police report said that when they first approached Lucas in his dorm room, they were responding to a quote potential school shooting. Like it wasn't, and so
Yeah.
that was so. I mean, so when you're and even if you let's just give the officers the benefit of the doubt that they thought they were coming up on a school shooting, right?
Yeah.
They walk in, there's no school shooting. There is and I'm going to be a little bit mean to Lucas here, but there's a diabetic kid whose blood sugar is all screwed up in a college dorm room that looks like a typical college dorm room that they just woke up, right?
Yeah.
I think it's time you could dial back the concern real quick, right? But
Yeah. You go, oh, and not only that, but the guy checked in the gun with one of the people present.
Right.
Like,
right.
Well, remember that was a problem. I shouldn't have checked it in. That's what made them afraid. Apparently, remember
Oh my
that.
So, from the cop standpoint, one of the things that in their mind, from their perspective, not we're investigating, a student with a question about a firearm or something. Because again, at Lake State, firearms are permitted. This is not an unusual. As I mentioned, I went to Lake State 20 years ago. It was extremely normal for sportsmen and trap shooters and hunters to have those guns going in and out of campus security all day long, in and out of the armory. Nothing nothing unusual.
of course.
And so, so if they had gotten a report, now that was always the one interesting question when we, one of the things we had looked at putting the officers on the stand is where in the world this concept of there was a school shooting about to occur, because it changes the whole mindset of how they're going to address the situation to begin with, right? Because if it's just we're concerned about a college kid, coming up with a tasteless, if you want to say a tasteless post, versus we're afraid the whole school's being shot up, it changes the dynamic of what the officer's doing all of a sudden. And of course, what they're doing is they're actually reacting disproportionate to what the actual threat is rather than what the actual circumstances are that are going on at the time. And they make mistakes mistakes right there.
Absolutely. So so Lucas, so you're handcuffed, you're answering questions, kind of
Well,
groggy.
actually, they didn't handcuff me.
Oh, they didn't handcuff you.
No.
Okay.
No.
But they'd blocked off the door and you're in this room and they're politely asking you questions.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, they're more or less basically answering my questions too. Like, for example, when I kind of asked, how was this a threat? The FTO generously replied to me that, well, have you seen The Wizard of Oz before? And I said, yeah. And he says, well, what happens to the Wicked Witch? And I says, well, she melts, and then he says, well, she melts and she dies, right? I'm like, yeah. And see, that's what we're talking about. So he
Wait.
literally
Got him. Got him.
The Wizard of Oz gotcha.
I have, what, Phil, I want to release that clip so bad. It's like 20 seconds long. It's of him just literally. I swear to God, when I told my dad after I got out of jail that had happened, and he started telling the press about it, I honestly was really worried because I wasn't actually sure it happened because I thought it was so unbelievable myself. I didn't even believe that it happened until I saw the footage. I was like, oh, thank God he actually said that because I'm not lying here. Because I'm being.
That's ridiculous.
Mhm.
And you're probably going to rain bullets down like water on top. Like the lunacy of the Wizard of Oz being brought up. Like
I got the clip,
too
but
bad you'd actually seen the Wizard of Oz. It would have been funnier if you had no idea. You're like, no, I don't know.
what's
What, are you
that?
some kind of boomer watching these old movies? What's the Wizard of Oz? I've only watched The Wiz with Michael Jackson.
I'm more of a socially boomer person myself. I don't really have a lot in common with people my generation. That's kind of why I got into shit with most of these kids, is because I didn't, conform with their modern ideals, I guess. But anyway, so I guess I want to, before I got to campus, I just want to make a point of, they never stopped me from getting onto campus. The campus never put an alert out. The state police never, the Mackinac Bridge, is a good point to stop anybody if you want to. The state police were not at the bridge. No, the Sault Ste. Marie police were not at the school. I had free reign to do whatever the hell I wanted to do, and I did. So the notion that they thought this was a real threat is completely ridiculous.
Well, it's like they went through this. What you've laid out is like this charade of your check-in. Like they have everything curated. They have the security officer who's clearly prepared for you. He's got the key card.
Which why
you
give
go
it
to
to me?
right. You go to the residential office. They've got only your card sitting out on this empty desk, just waiting for Lucas to arrive. You go. They let you go. The real crime here is that they made you carry all your stuff upstairs. Like they should have
Oh,
just arrested you earlier before you had to do all the work. Like that's,
yeah, and by the time they got there, I mean, the second time, my dad brought my refrigerator up and my, my hiking pack and all kinds of crap, and when they were there, I had dozens of pairs of clothes and a bunch of food and snacks and whatever. So I like, what do they think I was gonna do? Barricade my room and change every day? While I was like, what was that you got to think
these
about
are
the
dangerous
context.
outfits.
I have food and clothes and why would I bring that crap? And oh, by the way, I should also mention that in my picture, there's some bags and stuff that I had my clothes in that they proceeded to call body armor with no evidence. And in
Yeah,
fact,
I
the
think
police
they
officer,
said like a military style bag or something in the
they were,
description. Is what that's how they
yeah,
described it.
yeah, I
Is
know,
what
I know.
because
It
it was
just
just a duffel bag.
it just blows me away because they searched the damn bags. They searched the same bags they called body armor, and they didn't see. I saw the police officer look through them, and they still claimed in court that they thought it was body armor, which is stupid. Honestly, it makes me question their integrity if they were being honest or not. Um,
Well,
but
I have a long show on that subject.
Well,
and again, if
well,
you
and
said
let
it,
me jump in for a
But
second
yeah,
here and just say now, pretend you're the lawyer now, right? You guys you're the lawyer looking at this circumstance, and you got Lucas who's staring down a 20-year felony conviction, right?
hmm
Is these details enough to a jury of 12, 13, 14 residents, 12 plus the alternates, to convince them that this was all a ruse, right? This was this is the difficulty of what as a lawyer we're facing is I mean, if you're hearing all these inconsistencies that are here, is that enough to prove that Lucas is innocent, right? Or at least not guilty? And
when
and
the
if your Lucas standpoint, do you bankroll on the jury seeing those details and being pointed out those details enough to say the story doesn't make sense?
and the other part of that, Phil, is that no matter how many times you point it out to the jury and highlight it to them, do they ever get it? Like,
Yeah.
are they tuned out at that point? Are they hungry? Are they thinking about that episode of Friends that they watched last night? Like, there's any number of reasons where your finely crafted defense with excellent points on cross examination and a full dismantling of the narrative just gets missed because someone's thinking about a ham sandwich.
Or they come back and say, "Oh, that's just the lawyer being, being overly technical on everything."
Right.
Right? He's just making up, and this is a real risk, when we talk about, and I just why I want to point this out. These are the details that Lucas is telling you about right now that we would have had to present to the jury, right?
hmm
And to point out these, these eccentricities and these odd circumstances and these disjointed, they gave him the key, but they thought he was a threat and he wasn't a threat. They claim it's body armor, but it's a bag. And is that enough to bankroll the next 2 decades of your life on?
Right. That's the hard question.
That's
And
hard. That's hard.
for
Absolutely.
and I know this is kind of jumping ahead to the trial and whatever, but I want to say I did not make the decision based off of prison time. I did it because Phil, you told me about, and Phil talked to me a long time about the consequences of me losing. If I lost, I would not be able to be an advocate for the First Amendment, and this whole issue would be swept under the rug, and they would win.
Mhm.
I it, I saw it, and I talked. Nick, you're the one who really. I mean, I talked to everybody around me. They told me the same thing, and it wasn't until I got to you that I made a decision on the phone with you that I was gonna, take this thing and just end it, because I kind of saw it. Going to trial is only a personal vendetta I would have. It would only help me personally to go to trial. Waste $40,000 probably. I think that was the estimate. Somebody told me that. I don't remember who, but $40,000. 3 days of stress on my family. Who again, thank you to my mom and my dad and my brother and all my friends who were there for me, and they were all stressing out about it and telling me to take it. Um, I I said no to the deal for like 3 days. I did not want to take this deal. Phil will tell you that I did. I said no straight up 100,000 times. I was not. I was going to go straight to trial because I wanted to beat the bastards in court. Okay, but again, at the end of the day, if I did lose somehow, it would screw everything up for everybody else.
You'd be a
Everybody else,
terrorist, and everything everybody said about you would be wrong because you'd be a terrorist.
well, and not only
That's how
that,
it
but
goes when
like
you lose.
everything, and what I did say would have been considered a terroristic threat, and also the whole what we're trying to do in the future here with this civil stuff, it would never have happened, you know.
hmm
So we're trying to set things right. We're trying to set the law right. We're trying to set everything right, really. But we would not be able to do that if I lost. So
And my personal opinion on this is, so what Phil laid out rather clearly is the difficulty and the risk of going to trial, because at this point you go to a jury, and the juries are a group of people who are not legal experts. This is a legally, technically complicated issue and a charge. In my opinion, the biggest injustice occurred with the lack of immediate dismissal and the Court of Appeals not taking the existing jurisprudence on this statute, which basically says, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Phil, but basically it says if there is a plausible, legitimate First Amendment purpose for the speech, the statute is not to be used as a prosecutorial tool.
That is so what a lot of statutes do, and it's I think they're wrong. I think they're void for vagueness by doing it. I think they're unconstitutional. But
I'm with you 100%
what they'll do is
but
they'll say this speech is banned, whatever, and they'll say terrorist threats are banned. Speaking ill about the governor of your state is illegal. And then the next line down will say, except unless the speech is protected by the First Amendment.
Right.
So what happens is that they put a big circle around what you're not allowed to say, and then create exceptions to that based on the Constitution. When I think it should be the other way around, which is if you're going to prohibit specific speech, right, it needs to be clearly and specifically defined exactly what is supposed to be prohibited, so that there's no question to it. And Nick, I'm going to jump ahead and tag on what you said. One of the biggest irritations for me in this case, as a person I'm a lawyer who defends and prosecutes on First Amendment issues, all in both state and federal court. And the difficulty with this is now the jury, or excuse me, the law in Michigan, the Court of Appeals placed the question of your First Amendment rights in the hands of a jury.
Yep.
When the whole point of the First Amendment was you're never supposed to get charged in the first place. And Nick, the first time I met Nick, of course, was when he was critiquing me and my oral argument at the Court of Appeals. And he was a little nasty at me in the beginning on it until he kind of saw what I was trying to do there. As much as, I mean, this is going to sound terrible, but as much as Lucas going to jail would have been a travesty, what is a travesty is what the law in Michigan has become because of that decision.
Yes.
And so one of the difficulties, and I'm going to loop it back to Lucas here, is Lucas wanted to go to trial on the opportunity to try to fix that law through a second court case. And it's like, you realize, Lucas, that in order to fix the law, you have to be convicted of the law. And I'm going to be representing you while you're sitting in a Michigan prison.
And as my friend Andrew Branca always says, and appeals are for losers. Their unfortunate position of the appeal is that you have lost. You have now to convince 3 judges that one judge or a jury in particular, which is really difficult, got it all wrong. And you're hanging your hat on an extremely difficult uphill battle.
Best the numbers for us, best chance, your average number, your best chance of appeal is 15% of winning on appeal.
Yeah.
So out of 100 cases, 15 of them get reversed. And, we've already got a decision from the first go round that, is going to be handcuffing us, on the second go round on this thing. So, that's one of the difficulties. Lucas, I give Lucas a lot of credit because he wants to be, he wants to lead the charge on the First Amendment rights. But man, you have to take a heavy price and a heavy risk to be there in that respect. And that's that's too heavy of a burden for somebody who is 22 years old or 23 years old or 24 years old.
Well, I wanted to.
I know you wanted to, but there's, of course, we can't talk about now, but in the future, there's going to be some steps we're going to take in other forums to be able to attack and to challenge these types of laws without Lucas having to be wearing, orange is the new black all day long, right?
Exactly.
That way. So
I want to say one more thing on the subject, and then I want to get back into the story here. There's this interesting bit where you were talking, Phil, about how the whole purpose of the First Amendment or any amendment to the Constitution is, I like how Scalia describes it. He says, we're removing this from the democratic process.
correct.
A jury process is, in essence, a mini democracy that takes place, and we're removing this from their hands. The people that agree with you on how you described how the statute is vague, overbroad, is the Supreme Court of the United States. Like what you described is how the Supreme Court generally looks at these speech provisions. Not this category of speech is banned and we're going to pare it back. But the Supreme Court said all throughout that, like fighting words and all these exceptions to the First Amendment, they were never actually able to be properly put into law because they're always overbroad or they're always unconstitutionally vague. They always wrap up otherwise protected activity because you just can't write down the specific things unless it's hyper specific. Like you cannot say you're going to murder children at a specific time like that. That's how specific a law is supposed to need to be to restrict just general speech. Now, I went into a long explanation last night about how it's the speech plus action and that we criminalize the act. And because California Penal Code 401 says that you can't encourage suicide. This is the context. But you shouldn't, but you can encourage suicide all you want. In California, they require a next step that puts you into an active participant in the actual suicide attempt or act. That's how these things are supposed to work. There's supposed to be some actus reus that brings us into it.
Yep, absolutely.
So, yep. All right, sorry, Lucas, let's go back into the story. Too much law talk going on here. Very embarrassing.
It's Ricada law, so I would assume.
It should be Ricada whiskey at this point. So anyway, all right. So we're back. You've got these cops. They're interrogating you. They've got you locked in your room. You get arrested.
Well, no, not
after this interview, or not?
No. That's the funny part. What?
Oh, so you're a dangerous school shooter, and they don't arrest you?
Yeah, no. So what they do is they leave. So I'll say what happened during the interrogation. I told them, this is what I meant, whatever. I didn't give a great explanation because normally what would happen, again, this was kind of an average thing for me. They come all the time, so I would just talk to them, and I would like, this sounds so stupid because you guys all know what you should say to the police, which is nothing. But I was agreeing with them the whole time just because I thought it would make them go way faster. They were like, "Oh, so you see why this could be taken this way?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." Like I could see how this could be taken that way.
Well, yeah, it could be taken that way. That's not what I meant, but I get how someone could see. I'm with you.
I took classes, so I knew they were trying to like triangulate me into saying that meeting the criteria of terrorism, which has to be political and all that stuff. So they were questioning me. They asked me if there were any weapons in the room, and I'm thinking like, okay, I just got here. I just dumped all my stuff on the floor. I don't know where anything is, but I have things that you might consider a weapon. But I didn't even know what they meant by the question because in my mind, that's subjective. This freaking chair could be a weapon. I could hit you over the head with it and it would hurt. So what do they mean? What do they mean by weapon? So I say, okay, well, there's like a pocket knife there. Does that count? There's a BB pistol over there. Is that because in my mind, a BB pistol is a toy. It's not a firearm, so it's not a weapon.
Apparently, you've never watched National Lampoon's Vacation.
I have, but
shot me with a BB gun. Sorry, go ahead.
But and I had my bayonet in there, which I probably should have checked that in, but I would have done that later. I just got there, I was exhausted, and it was packed in all my stuff. I was packed in everything, and I just anyway, and then but the one thing that hit me weird about that was and this proves it was subjective. I had a handsaw, like a folding handsaw that was probably about this big, right? the blade. And the security officer's like, now this I can understand. I'm like, what do you mean you could understand that? It's not up to your like. I'm trying to swear so much in here anymore. I got criticized pretty heavily last time for my lighting and my swearing. So
well, the lighting's on point. Your swearing's a little weak today. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I'm trying to be the like public persona, Lucas, not the private like drinking bar.
No,
thing.
everybody,
Anyway.
it's the way it goes. Everybody lays expectations on you, and some of those expectations are wise at times. So it's, you're doing great. Just keep going.
I'm just saying, like, okay, guy, it's up to your opinion what a weapon is and what it is. I could easily, if you consider a pocket knife a weapon, this handsaw definitely would be considered a weapon as well. But he's like, no, you can keep this. This is all right, And they took my baton. I had a baton. They took that. They took they took a few other things, like tiny little pocket knives. And they're like measuring and everything, like their little measuring tapes and shit. And like it's like, okay, guys, okay, mass shooting with a knife. Like, come on. So anyway, they're pretty much in there trying to say that I'm a terrorist, and it's kind of shocking to wake up and the police accusing you of terrorism your first day of school. So
Right.
it's not that typical. So they leave though. Okay, and I'm like, oh, so I call my dad, and I usually it got so normal up there that I didn't even bother calling or telling anybody the police showed up because I just didn't care that anymore at that point. But it was the first day of school, and it was kind of like a 3-month gap. So I was like, you know what? I'll just call and see. And I kind of figured it was a little bit more serious because that was the first time I'd actually been accused of a crime. Like usually when they came, they'd just be like, well, we're suspicious or something. This time they were like, yeah, you committed terrorism. And so I call my dad. He comes up. He brings some of my stuff with him, and we spend the whole day, the rest of the day, out. Not that I participated or anything, but there was a whole thing called Lakerpalooza going on, which is like a big campus-wide carnival type thing, and there were all these kids out there just walking around the campus, having a movie night on the lawn and everything, just doing whatever. It was more people I'd ever seen on campus ever. They were all outside, which is not typical for Lake State. They're usually inside. You usually see nobody out there. So I'm just out doing whatever I want. And then the next morning I go, I wake up and they arrest me at that point. So again, and it really just, I just know nobody thought this was a threat. I think that when the prosecutor charged it, it shocked everybody. I think the objective of the school and of the girls was to get me expelled so they didn't have to deal with me anymore. They wanted a reason to get rid of me. And when the charge came, that was their shot. They thought so what they were going to do, if I didn't get charged, they were going to try and expel me. I was receiving emails while I was in jail. Apparently I didn't get them because I was in jail, but of the school emailing me, knowing full well I was in jail, saying, hey, we got a meeting set up for you to talk to the dean or whatever, and talk about, the weapons policy or something like that. And anyway, so they were going to do that anyway. So now I'm in jail. So they throw me in jail. They book me in.
And you're in jail, what, like 2-3 hours? Like maybe like an hour, 45 minutes, right? You're just in there for just a little stint until then they, they go ahead and they issue you a citation, they send you home, or you get to your bond. Well, probably overnight, like, right? You go overnight, you get your bond hearing the next morning, right?
I just saw a comment. I missed something very important. I missed the girls. I missed the context of these girls. They were, only one of them was on my Snapchat friends list. The main complainant was blocked. She was specifically blocked because I had a political argument with her about Columbus Day. I was kind of like bitching about how I thought Indigenous Peoples Day was bullshit because it was trying to take the place of Columbus Day. And as Italian American myself, I like Columbus, and I didn't want anybody. I don't have a problem with the day itself. I have a problem with them trying to replace my day. That's right. My problem.
That's that's Meatballs and Noodles Day, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, the noodles. Yeah, no, but my problem is
going to hell now for sure. So
Meatballs and Noodles and cheap laundromats in New Jersey Day. Come on.
Hey, watch it. Watch it. But so I had a problem with it, and she came right out the gate like screaming, like all caps, like like a kind of a unhinged SJW lunatic. Like, if you were not born here, if your ancestors were not born here, you're a fucking immigrant or something. And I'm like, well, I was born here, and And so this conversation went on. And I just ended up blocking her. I blocked her myself. I know in the case it was mentioned that she blocked me, which is BS. I blocked her, which is kind of significant in my opinion because it shows that I'm trying to de-escalate and distance myself from conflict. So I blocked her, and what happened was her friend was still on my Snapchat. She had the post pulled up on her phone, and I guess the girl who I blocked saw it and was like, "Oh, we got to get him," like something like that. I don't know exactly how it worked. And again, they both admitted they saw the disclaimer post, so they both
And
knew.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
She took a picture of the Snapchat from a phone, like literally, like
Yeah.
click takes the picture, not took a screenshot of it. She had to take a pic because she's blocked. She has to take the picture of someone else's phone.
Yeah, their evidence photo was a photo of a photo of on a phone. Yeah. And so, oh wait, I also got to mention too, when I got arrested, just the kind of stuff they have is so unorthodox. They gave me a ticket for terrorism. I had it, I had it on Joe's show. I had it as a prop. I should have brought props this time too. You guys should go check out Joe Neerman. I did an interview there too. He's a good guy.
No, don't. He's my competitor. Never check him out.
No, check him out. Check him out. Check him out. But I had the ticket. I literally got a ticket for terrorism, and it said misdemeanor copy right at the top, even though 20-year felony is nowhere near a misdemeanor. So they wrote me a ticket, and the other unorthodox thing they did was when they listed the witnesses out, they listed the university as one of the witnesses.
Well, that college has seen a lot.
Like the buildings or something. Like how is the university gonna testify? What are you gonna do? So that was really weird too. But
well, actually, there was a long time ago. I talked about a speech given at Google by someone who identified as an ornate building. So maybe that was the plan.
I identify as innocent. How about that?
checkmate, prosecutors. No. Okay, so you get arrested. You get a citation for terrorism. I heard they gave that to Osama bin Laden too. You got your ticket that they drop on you, and then they take you to jail. And I was joking because you spend a long time in jail, right?
Yeah, about 80 days. But I want to say something funny really quick to kind of lighten it.
Oh,
a bit.
Please do.
So when I was getting booked in, you can see my mugshot on Google or wherever you want. I think I mentioned it on Joe's show too, but if you look at the picture, I'm just such a rookie when it comes to the getting arrested thing that I put the shirt on backwards for I was wearing a Marine Corps like USMC shirt, so they knew the public was gonna be all over it, so they didn't want that shirt in the photo. So they gave me like a jail shirt, and it said Chippewa County Jail right in right on the shirt, and I was like, oh, this is the front, right? So I put it on, and my mugshot, you can see XL right on the collar, like it's the back of the shirt. I got my shirt on backwards for the mugshot. It's yeah, there it is. Yeah. Yeah, it's not. I look out tired, and I just was like sick of it at that point.
He looks like he's 6 years old, for God's sakes, like we just took him out of third grade because he was with terrorism, right? So
I heard you guys were selling Pokemon cards. You got any? Look
Yeah.
at this one. I don't know. Someone stole your mugshot and put you in court.
What the hell? What is that? It's like a 244 pixel. What is that?
It's from the Tennessee Star. I don't know. It's from their news story. Michigan bill responds to student facing up to 20 years in prison.
You know what I hated too is that I had a perfectly good like press photo out there. I took like a picture with this flag in the background for my GoFundMe that I was like, yeah, this one will work fine. Because I don't take a lot of pictures of myself, and nobody takes pictures of me because I'm always the guy with the camera. So I didn't have any pictures, but they still used this photo a lot while I was, I had the good one out there. So it was whatever. Little things, right? It was always the details that bothered me. But so anyway, I got booked in. I looked like an idiot. I was in holding for 3 days. Okay, I was in for 3 days because I was arrested on like Friday morning. They kept me till like Monday. And holding sucks because it's a tiny concrete room. You get all like the drunks and whatever off the street that come in there, and you got nothing in there, with nothing at all. There's no blankets, no beds, no nothing. It's just concrete walls and a floor. And a toilet and whatever. And the people I was in there with like a pedo, a freaking. There was actually a college kid in there with me. He pissed himself though, and it was like piss all over the seats and stuff. And it was like really gross. And I was in there for 3 days. They put me in population. Oh, those 3 days took forever, by the way. That was like the worst
Oh
part of it.
God, that's a horrific place. You have no privacy. You're just in there with weirdos coming in and out. You got to sleep at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and and it was cold. It was really cold. I remember that because I had this T-shirt, and I remember it was so big on me. It's an extra large. I wear like mediums, so it was really big on me, and so I was able to put like the shirt over my legs and just like that. But that was like my blanket. It was really cold. So I got into so yeah, the guards did me a favor, and they were like, "We're gonna put you with the younger guys, and we think you'll get along with them." So they didn't throw me in with like the wolves, I mean, granted, the guys I was in the cell with, you might think are bad people, but just to preface it a little bit, and I'm not saying these guys are my friends or my buddies or anything, but I will say that I got I got along better with these guys than a lot of the kids at Lake State. Honestly, I got along better with them than I did there. So probably because these people weren't so sensitive and whatever. So, but I was in there. It was a 16-man pod, and there were people, and there was a federal holding facility. So people from all over the country came in. We had a guy extradited from Jamaica. We had a guy from Chicago. We had we had Bloods and Crips and GDs and Counts and Latin Kings. In my facility, there were 2 real ISIS terrorists too. They weren't in my
Wow.
cell, but they were in the facility. Yeah. So, but
They
I'm in
should
the
have
cell.
put you in with those guys.
Oh yeah, we're gonna go.
Well, to be
great.
clear, Lucas, just so that the people out here, you were in with federal jailees.
Yeah,
well.
that's what I said.
I mean, yeah, right. Okay, all right, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, it's a federal holding facility. So
Yeah.
all the and there were local people there too. The
Why
local
were
people.
you in the federal holding facility? Why didn't they just have you in county lockup?
That's so the Chippewa County Jail was transformed into this. They call it Chippewa County Correctional Facility. It's a federal holding. It's like their jail is because it's on the border. I mean, the last exit before Canada is Chippewa is Lake State. So it is on the border. They get all these crazy people, and it's just kind of a hub, I guess. It is their jail, and they don't have a whole lot up there. So,
Nick, that's a lot of that is because of money. The feds pay for a lot of that stuff,
yeah.
and it's right up there. It is the port of entry from Canada on the north side. There, it's where you got to come in between Lake Superior and Niagara Falls. You're coming in either through Windsor, or you're coming in through Sault Ste. Marie in Michigan. Those are it's a huge federal dollars are up there with huge federal facilities. That way.
I just swim across Lake Superior is what I do. So
I would rather swim across Lake Superior than ever go back to the city again. I'll tell you that. I would rather. I'm not even kidding. I really. I maybe not swim, I'd die. But if I had a boat, I would take it. I would not ever want to go back there. I kind of have to in September, but after that, I don't ever want to go back there. It's a bad place. But anyway.
You're in there, but you're in there with some real fine fellas.
Yeah. Actually, okay. I do have to say this though. I got along with them pretty well, aside from 1 or 2. One guy tried to fight me at some point. He's like, get off your rack, let's go fight in the showers. I'm like, you're gonna fight me right here if you're gonna fight me. I don't remember what it was about. Because he's like he was a Latin King. I can't remember the exact details of why.
Latin King is a gang name. He's not calling him a king who happens to be Latin.
No, I'm not in with like a Latin King. No, a Latin King is a gang.
Latin King is my TikTok name.
No. So yeah, he's trying to fight me, and I'm like, no, you're gonna do it right here. And he just kind of like laughed. I don't know. They didn't. I don't think it was. He obviously wasn't like scared of me or anything, but it was probably. I wasn't seen as like the rest of them were. My first night in the cell, they were like, oh, we're gonna raise you up as our criminal child or whatever. They're trying to like take me under their wing, I guess, and kind of teach me the ways. I mean.
Yeah,
I didn't care. Like it was kind of fun screwing around in the jail. Like it was an interesting experience, and honestly, I think that every criminal justice student should at least do a week in jail. I'm serious. I think
I agree, and most of them should stay there. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, maybe the ones from the people I was dealing with. Maybe actually, wait. I don't want to jump back, but just really quickly, I mentioned my car was vandalized while I was at Lake State. My windows were smashed. And the person that did
I remember that in the
person,
from the report.
The person who did that, I know the name, and I'm not saying names at this point, but that person is now a police officer. So, just anyway, so
do you still want to now that you're Now that you're out, are you going to go back to criminal justice and go be a police officer?
Um, it, I want to, and I think
Really?
this experience would make me a better one, to be quite honest. I think having both perspectives is a well-rounded and general. Um, look, I still like police officers, I like policemen, and I think what they do is good. I do think that sometimes things don't go according to plan, and I don't blame the police officers aside from their negligence and their lack of intelligence. With the whole Wizard of Oz comment, but it was mostly the government and the law that caused this, not the police officers. The policemen did what they were told to do, and they did it to the best of their ability.
He's a good boy, isn't he?
Oh man.
I
Like,
no
if I were in-
forgiveness, no forgetting, right? So
Oh no! I'm not
If I
I'm
were
not
in your
forgiving
shoes,
anybody. I'm not
I'd be-
forgiving anybody at all. No, absolutely not. And
I'd be
honestly,
wearing a bed sheet as a diaper and running around with a torch, burning government buildings to the ground. Like what? we go way in opposite directions on that one.
no, I have no mercy or sympathy or anything for any of these other people. But the policemen, again, I don't. There needs to be law and order in this country, and I want to be a part of that. I want to, I'm able to understand, unlike the people at Lake Superior State, that your personal beliefs do not impact how you enforce the law. Okay, that's what they could never understand. That's what they did not understand, is that when you bring your personal beliefs into the legal process, you are inherently unethical, and you're a piece of shit, and you don't belong in law enforcement or any legal process whatsoever. I understand that fact, which is why I still think I still want to do it. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if I change my mind, but at this point, I don't want this to affect my life decisions. I don't want this to affect me in any other way than it has to. I mean, it's already affecting me quite a bit. And this is my second career choice anyways. This was already my fallback. My first choice was the Marine Corps, but I got diabetes when I was 13, and type 1 diabetics cannot go into the Marine Corps. They cannot go into any military service. So that was unfortunately my second choice, was law enforcement. Again, I don't want to have to go into a third option here. So I will if I have to.
Maybe
But
we gotta put Lucas through this a second round on this, right? And then
Yeah.
maybe he'll learn. He'll finally learn the second time around on this. Sucker,
After
right?
this stream, you're gonna open up.
well, Phil will tell you I'm a very stubborn person, but I mean, you should know this from me just staying up at school for 2 years. But they had to literally drag me out of that school with handcuffs to get me out of there. But
Okay,
yeah.
so you spend 80-ish days in jail.
Mhm. Yep.
You mentioned it, like, and I think this is kind of a common experience for a lot of people. You don't want to be in jail, but while you're there, I mean, you gotta just kind of live it and do it. And it sounds like you did that. You didn't have the worst experience ever.
Barely. Well, well, hold on. I wasn't done with that yet.
Okay. No, now let's get
No.
to the juicy parts.
Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, no, my experience with the inmates wasn't so bad. However, and not to say the guards are the problem either. My experience with the diabetes aspect with their medical policy was the problem.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah. So basically, what happened was so diabetic, you take, like, I got these insulin pen things, right?
Mhm.
And there's a set, you take, there's 2 ways to dose insulin for when you take.
Oh, now I know
Shot.
why you weren't afraid to fight the Latin King. You had a couple of those insulin pens
No.
sitting around. You're gonna
No.
like juice that guy down. He had no
No.
chance.
That's the problem. No, I didn't. They had these. That is the problem, Nick. So I was not able to have these things, and I was not able to control my insulin. They controlled it 100%, 110%. I had no control. What they did was, well, when you dose insulin, you're supposed to do it 2 ways. Your correction factor, which is basically you check your blood sugar, and for me, every 50 units over 150 is 1 unit of insulin.
Right.
And then you also do it for carbohydrates and how much you consume in a meal. So if you whatever carbohydrates you take, whatever amount of insulin. What they did in the jail was, and I walked in there and said, I told them I have a prescription. This is what I'm supposed to take, and they were like, no. This is what we do here. We have a flat rate for all diabetics, and you're gonna listen to us what we tell you to take. And I'm like, what? A flat rate? That's a good way to get somebody killed, But I, again, trying to be all cooperative. Okay, I'm not gonna cause a problem for you guys. I'll see how it goes. It didn't go very well. I'll walk you through a day. You wake up, you get to You go to the medical cart, they check your blood. If my blood was anything under 150, they would give me 0 insulin. Okay,
Mhm.
so let's say my blood was 149. They gave me no insulin on that day, that morning.
Right. Now, I know a couple diabetics, but basically non-diabetic normal blood sugar hovers around like 80 to 100, right? Is that
Yeah,
kind of where you want to be, your target zone?
yeah, like around there. It's a good spot to be. So I was, so they say I was under 150. No insulin for the morning, and that's again, they only gave me insulin for my correction factor. So they gave me no insulin for my food. So when they gave me no insulin for being under 149 or 150, um, they give me breakfast, and I'd eat all the breakfast, and then my blood sugar would spike up to like 400, which is freaking crazy hospital levels. And
Right.
then by lunchtime, they'd be like, "What'd you do? Get into a bag of cookies, Gerhard, or whatever?" And I'm like, "Dude, you gave me no insulin. What what do you want me to do about it?
You gave me no
So
insulin and then fed me pancakes.
yeah, well, we never got pancakes, but yeah,
Oh, you weren't at the good prison then. No, I'm just kidding. Keep going.
my food wasn't that bad. They had some pretty good cookies, but anyway,
They should have sent you to Snowflake prison for the pancakes.
yeah, I was already there for 2 years. It was called Lake State.
Okay, so yeah, your blood sugar spikes because you
So
eat the
it spikes
food.
up, and then
Yeah.
by lunch they will be like and this is so weird. So if my blood sugar was like 400, they would give me double the amount I would usually take for their correction. So they'd try and bring me down, but it would be like twice as much as I always do. And so it would crash me. I'd go down to like 40 or below what their readers could even sense. And then what they would do to fix that, I would be like, guys, I'm dying. You need to help me out. Um, they would give me
Literally.
yeah, literally, because
Yeah,
going
literally
low is
dying.
where going low is really bad because you can go into a coma and just die. Um, and nobody would really care in that jail anyway. But they gave me a tube like the size of a small like toothpaste thing of sugar jelly or something. It was so nasty. It was gross, and it was so small, and there was nothing. And I don't think they understood that giving you sugar is only going to spike you. It's not going to sustain the blood. It's going to just spike it up. You need carbohydrates to keep you stable. So they give me
Right.
this little tube, and I would just okay. I'll try and fight it off till dinner. And if I did manage to do that, which I always did, apparently, it'd be wherever it was, and the process would continue. And it's bad enough at being super low and super high, but for a diabetic, fluctuation is what really screws you up in the long term. Like that medically really can kill you, and honestly might have effects later in my life because of it. Um, but flashing forward a month or two, this continued to happen, and my blood sugar was so crazy that they uh they put me in a medical disciplinary action. They threw me in the hole for 5 days because they said I couldn't control my blood sugar, even though they had 100% of control over how much insulin I took and what I ate. So they threw me in the hole. I was in there for 5 days, and you guys got to remember, like, part of the biggest problem was this with this whole thing was that I don't know when I'm gonna get out. I'm telling you 5 days now. I didn't know it was 5 days then. I
Right.
told you I was in there for 80 days. I didn't know it was gonna be 80 days. For all I knew, it was gonna be a whole year I was in that jail. That was the worst part about the whole thing. Um,
Where was the hearing? Like, where was your bond hearing and all this? I know Phil
um,
wasn't your lawyer at this time.
yeah. So initially I got um. Well, let me finish up the diabetic thing really quick. I'll get
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the lawyer stuff. So I was in the hole for 5 days, and after that, you guys probably know commissary. So if anybody doesn't know, commissary is something that you can order once a week over the phone, and you have to pay money for it, obviously. And it's always charging you arm and a leg for garbage products. But I had a diabetic restriction placed on my account now, so I couldn't order certain things because I was a diabetic. But the weird part was, and the thing that really told me they didn't know what they were doing, was that the diabetic restriction allowed me to order things like Milky Way candy bars, but restricted me from buying things like sausages and stuff. Like stuff with no carbs or sugar and like salt packs and whatever. Like I couldn't order that, but I could order a Milky Way and a freaking honey bun. I swear to God, it was
Oh, you muted out.
there we go. Sorry, I don't know why
Yep.
that is really garbage. I'm sorry. Anyway, so you couldn't so they had no idea what they were doing at all, and that was proof to me. So anyway, I'll that was pretty much the diabetic thing. I'll jump to the court stuff.
Yeah. So do you have at this point a court-appointed lawyer? Had you hired a lawyer, or had your dad helped you hire a lawyer? Like what
Yeah.
happens with you're just in jail? Like you're just in jail and nothing's happening.
So and here's the thing: I don't know what's going on because when you're in there, you have no connection with the outside. You have to rely on people on the outside to help you. And if you haven't got anybody on the outside, you're screwed. My dad was the one in this case that really kind of went around and got lawyers for me. To my mom's credit too, though, and I was telling my dad the same thing. And again, he was trying. He thought he was doing his best. He had a public defender assigned to me for like 2 weeks or whatever it was, 3 weeks. I don't know. It was a while.
Mhm.
And I knew I was like, Dad, give me a real lawyer, please. I want a real lawyer. This is too big of a case, too much to risk for some stupid, public defender. My mom was
Damn.
right on the same page. My mom was like hounded him for it. Like, you need to get, our son a real lawyer, whatever. Anyway, this was a mess. She met with me one time before court, and she was like, "So why did you have a gun? Why did you need this? Why did you need that? Why did you like typical like liberal freaking questions about the Second Amendment, that kind of thing." And I was like, "Oh, I'm screwed. I'm going to prison, right? Like I'm not in a good place." So we go to court, the arraignment, and I don't think anybody. I don't know. I haven't seen the transcript, but that went normal, I guess. But eventually I try to get bond motion set, but she's been going on about this freaking psych eval the whole time, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like I'm not doing a psych evaluation. What she's trying to do is she's trying to plead me out crazy or something. I don't know what she's trying to do. I really don't know. It's just, but thing was, I was like, no, we're doing a bond motion. This is what I'm telling you to do. So I get to court one day expecting a bond motion, and I sit down, and she says, "Okay, I'd like to proceed with the psych eval motion." I'm like, "Excuse me, what?" Um, and she's like, "I'm sorry, but it's not your choice at this point." And that's what she said to me. That's a quote.
That's how that works then.
Yeah, that's a
Oh,
quote.
well,
And
I wish
and then
I
she
would have remembered that when I was a lawyer, that I could just tell my clients what they got to do and ignore their wishes. That'd be great. Would have made my
and then
life
she,
so
yeah,
much easier.
she carried on to say, and this is where my dad's like ex-girlfriend's quote comes in, because one of the tips made to the sheriff was that like I had psychopathic tendencies and I was a like a school shooting threat or something like that. Like she said this public defender said that um that law enforcement said those words. She said that well, the law enforcement his local law enforcement says that he has psychopathic tendencies and that he is a threat to himself and others, and so I think it's in the best interest of the people that he goes and does a psych evaluation. And she's saying all this stuff about me, literally calling me psychopathic in front of the judge as I'm trying to get a bond motion. And anyway, this goes on for like 5 minutes, and then she sits down, and I'm like, what the hell was that? And she's like, I'm sorry, but it was my choice in the end. Um,
Whew.
yeah, yeah, and I was so freaking shocked. I should have fired her right there and then, but I couldn't freaking believe what just happened. So I just got up and walked right back out and to my cell, and I told everybody what was happening. They're like, dude, what? What the hell? Um, so yeah, my public defender pretty much prosecuted me in front of the judge. Oh, and also I should also mention too. Um, I don't actually maybe not now. Next time. Again, I
Maybe
don't
another
want to.
time. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. No, I
Um,
mean that alone is mind blowing. And you had some bad luck with some of this early stuff. But my question, and maybe Phil, maybe you can help me out with this. Why is it so long for him to get a bond hearing in the first place?
It shouldn't be. That's the whole point. It shouldn't be, but
it should be. My understanding is you have to have a probable cause hearing within 48 hours, roughly. That doesn't count Sundays, but counts Saturdays. But you have to have your probable cause hearings are often ex parte, but your bond hearing that should be done within 36 hours, exclusive of holidays and weekends, right? Like, am I crazy?
I was in holding longer than that.
Yeah.
Twice as long.
Well, okay, so of course everybody from Michigan puts up their hand. So you can imagine the speediness concerns start really high down here, and as you further go north,
Yeah.
The reality is that, I mean, there's one county I know they will only take people in Monday night to turn yourself in, because they're mandatory make you stay the night, because they want to make sure that you get processed, because the judge only does arraignments and bond hearings on Tuesday.
Right, but like
One judge.
7 days would have been better than 80.
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing too. So I would be on the phone with my dad. Hey, what's going on? What? Because the phone calls are recorded, so you cannot say anything related to the case on the phone.
Right, yeah.
And
You
so
never talk about anything on a jail phone.
But you don't know how hard it is. You gotta know. It just if it wasn't for the not knowing, and with the 20-year felony hanging over my head, it would have pretty much just been a really screwed up summer camp. Like, honestly, I did not take it so hard in there, other than the fact that I was stressing about the not knowing.
Mhm.
I guess everybody probably handles you a little bit differently. I didn't see anybody crying there. I didn't see anybody like. No, actually I did. Never mind. There was one guy who should I. I don't know if I should. I get into the whole. What do you call it? I guess.
I'd skip right now, because I'd like you to get a little bit more down to your trial part of this thing, because I think, the trial prep stuff, because I think that's even more interesting of where you're at right now. Is
okay. All right. Yeah.
Let me transition you for just a second, just to say that.
Well, we're against forced transitions here, Phil. I don't know
Well,
about that.
I don't want to force it, but I guess the point I would say is it's difficult, because my first thing let me say is that I'm not a criminal defense attorney. I'm a civil rights attorney, so I'm a civil litigator. And so a lot of this stuff, when I get pulled into these cases, because Lucas hired both myself and another attorney I work with, I know Nick knows him, is Matt Granda.
Mhm.
Matt is an excellent criminal defense attorney. And of course, my expertise is suing in civil rights and appeals work, which is how we connected originally, to help with the appeals work. And one of the things that is shocking to me is there's supposed to be kind of this body of public defenders always on call at the courthouse.
Mhm.
So you think that it would be a nice, normal, smooth, predictable process. People coming in, they get to see a public defender. They would get before a judge, or the public defender would say, hey, wait a minute, this guy's been here for, things would happen, right? Like that. And the reality is, and again, I'm somewhat of an outsider as a civil attorney. It doesn't work. It doesn't work with any level of straight normalcy or predictability that you would expect when they're doing this all day, every day, everywhere.
Yeah, that's crazy. Even in our small town, I mean, if you have people held longer than that 36 hours without their first appearance, you've got motions flying in. You got a whole bunch of. It's not really an acceptable way to do things. I mean, because you're not guilty. So you don't get to just stay under the arm of the government that long. So to hear it's very disheartening to hear that that's kind of the status there. And I'm sure it's bad elsewhere too.
In Lucas's point, I guess the other part to remember on all this is that, as he's hearing from his court appointed attorney, and he's talking to his dad, and he has no idea when, if anything, is coming.
Yeah.
How's it coming? Any sort of predictability on when it's coming. And so, I mean, I can only imagine being in Lucas's shoes in there and saying, just not knowing what's going on, combined with the lack of certainty of, guarantee of process. Right. And that's one of the big things that, this whole process is supposed to be premised on the idea of the process that's due. Right. That's where we get due process from. Right. The phrase due process.
Okay. So I have a question. So there's a public defender who's a good guy, public defender, in the chat right now. And he's in the same place I am. He says he must have had a first appearance in a bond, but that just never happened. Is that like, until you get several weeks in and you have the motion for the psychiatric evaluation? Is that right? Like you never showed up in court before that?
No, I went in for the arraignment. I was arraigned in.
Okay. And then what? So at the
the next thing I remember was going in for that psych eval. There was I remember wanting a bond motion so bad, but there was never a bond motion. By the time I got one,
but they didn't do a bond. They didn't do bond for you at the arraignment.
I think one was set, but it was $250,000, and so $250,000, and
Okay.
and I had to be in Chippewa County, which I did not have a place to stay. So I think they very well knew I could not leave. So
Gotcha.
it was basically a technicality because they knew I couldn't leave. There's no way.
When was your bond hearing? How soon was that after you got arrested and brought in? Was that like
Weeks.
within a couple? It was weeks.
Oh yeah, like
So this wasn't like
wait.
2 days
Just so-
in you get
so-
the bond and then you go on.
Don't take
Sure.
this for like a factual statement. This is my opinion because I don't remember correctly, and every
Right.
day in there seemed like a long time. But if I had to guess, and even with the context of me knowing that it seemed like a longer time than it was, I would still say like a few weeks at the very least.
So your first your arraignment hearing does not happen within like the first 5 days. Is
No,
what you're saying.
well,
It
I know,
was
but I
much-
think
it was
my arraignment happened within the fourth day. I think.
the fourth day for the arraignment. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I think so. Because
That
I was in
makes
holding
a little
for
more sense.
I was in holding for 3 days, and then I went into arraignment as soon as I got out of holding, and then I was brought. Well, I was in my cell, and then then the other thing happened.
And you were arrested on a Friday, right?
Friday morning.
Yeah, that boned you really bad.
Oh yeah,
and-
big
and
time.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still. Okay, so sorry. So let's move ahead. Phil was
Yeah.
suggesting we move past. So you do the jail time. You go through a couple lawyers at this point.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then,
actually, I
and then,
didn't
yeah,
really
what?
go through. I hired a guy up there named Mark Dobiage. He's a really good lawyer. Really, really good guy. I like him a lot. Problem was, being up there, it's just so hard to get be in contact with him physically. So I kept him on retainer. I kept him on, and he was on retainer up until the very end. And so I would, talk to him every now and again. And then I hired a guy, Nick Somberg, who, again, I like him a lot. He's a really good guy. Probably not the best for my case though. So we let him go. And again, this was nothing against him. It was just I was advised to do so, so I did. And I always try to listen to my advisors the whole time. I was in this case, which helped me, and it didn't help me sometimes.
I don't know much about him, but from what the one hearing that he was involved in, I was
a mess.
It was not the greatest appearance.
Well, do you want me to go over that hearing?
It's up to you what you want to get into. I don't know.
I'd be careful here. I would suggest we skip over because I'm just going to say your best bet is why don't we talk about when you start getting how you got out with bond, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then talk about the process of what happened for the next 2 years after that, because I think the folks would really like to hear about that.
That's part of the thing, though.
If people are curious about that hearing a little more and my opinion on it, I've covered it in a previous stream and bitched about it very thoroughly. So you can go and get my take as an outsider's perspective on that hearing, which was a whole different story. But you can find some discussion on that. But okay, yeah. So tell us how you actually get out on bond, what happens, and that's when you get your fun ankle bracelet forever.
Yes.
And we'll just also let everybody else know too. The reason we're not going over it again is because this is still active, and I don't want to shoot myself in the foot. Okay, so anybody who wants me to say it, I mean, sorry, but I'm not gonna. I just sacrificed 3 years of my life for this. I'm not gonna take 20 more. Anyway,
seriously, go. I talk all about it in like the last live stream I did on this subject, and you can go hear all about my opinions of it there.
Okay, so bond hearing. I mean, there's not really that much to say about the bond hearing. I mean, so they bound me over to circuit, and I walk in and I got a new judge, and I like this judge a lot better. I'll say that. And this judge heard what my dad had. My dad, talked about his, credentials and stuff, and how like it would be reasonable. Okay, so the whole problem was I couldn't be bound down to my county. They wanted me up there in Chippewa County unsupervised or whatever, so that just wouldn't have worked. So we had to get it down here. The money wasn't the problem. We had the money, but they knew it was a problem. So the judge agreed to let me down in my home. And so, I mean, that was pretty much simple. Was that in the bond? No, it was not. Wait, maybe it was. I'm not going to go into the details right now. I guess if you want me back on again, I'll talk about the details about some things. But until then, I'll just be general because I don't know how much time we have anyways.
Well,
But
absolutely. In the future, we can get into all of these details when everything's all done. That's fine. Okay, so talk about you get on bond, you go on this, you get on the ankle monitor. So you spend about 80 days in jail, but then you spend, what, the next 2.5 years on this ankle bracelet, right?
yeah, 1,056 days. It was about so I
Just
was at
1,056 though.
and this still isn't really over for me. Again, I got the thing in September, so this is gonna be in total over a year, over 3 years and 1 month. So over 3 years for this. Yeah. So I got in the tether, which is a big piece of plastic you wrap around your leg. Um, and later on, because I never understood why they gave it to me in the first place. Later on, they said that they were not concerned about me being a flight risk, which is the purpose of a tether, but they
Mhm.
were concerned I was a danger to the public's safety. And I'm just thinking, like, okay, and this is not even in context of me, but say there's some, you know, mass murder maniac, whatever. Your way of like keeping him from hurting people is to put some plastic on his ankle and just hope that, the police can get there in time. That doesn't make any sense to me, but that was what they said. So they had me on the tether for 3 years. There was like no incidents at all. I was completely compliant with what they did to the best of my ability. I mean, I had to sleep with a charger. I charged it while I was sleeping. Um, that was annoying, and so I can't sleep anymore. The rate, I don't sleep at all really at this point. But even when I do, it feels weird not having this thing plugged in. There's like a big uh ring around my ankle now. Just I can't feel it. Numb from where the
Mm.
thing was for 3 years. So yeah, the tether. I had the tether. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't, use the internet. I couldn't use the technology without the internet. I couldn't have my weapon,
So
obviously.
you couldn't use the technology without the internet. Does that mean like you couldn't use a laptop because a laptop could have the internet, even if it was disconnected from the internet? You couldn't use a computer. Is that what
That
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 meant?
was that was a bond provision, right, Phil? I'm not getting that wrong.
So,
'Cause
so he was not allowed. So, as I understand it, because I would not be. I guess what I would say, right? And again, I got to play lawyer for a second here. Let's not admit to a bond violation inadvertently here, right now, right?
no,
But what I would say is that he was. So I will say he wasn't allowed to go out. So you got to realize this is a kid that's in his early 20s,
Yeah.
been ripped out of school, right? Can't go to school, can't go hang out with friends, can't be on the internet. Can watch movies and things like that, use a television and things like that, but can't have any sort of communications, can't leave. Essentially, I mean, we use the phrase house arrest. I mean, that's kind of the nicer phrase for it. It's confinement. Rather than being behind bars, you're behind the walls of your house with no ability to interact with the outside world whatsoever.
Right. Lots of people on house arrest. Now, this is due to the nature of the accusation. The accusation is that you used an interstate communication or a mass communication device to convey a threat. So therefore, part of the thing would be to remove that mass communication aspect. It's like when people commit a crime that involves alcohol, they get a no alcohol provision or something like
Correct.
that. So, so
So
a
the
lot of
difference.
people on house confinement, they can still do stuff like use the internet. They can still use technology. But for your case, you get kind of the worst end of it because of the nature of the accusation.
right. I
And
mean, I missed everything. I missed everything. There's no connection with the outside world. By the time COVID happened, I was already 8 months under arrest. So, and by the time I got out, it was pretty much over. So I don't even know anything about that at all. I missed a lot of just normal things that everybody knows about.
You didn't even get all the good election memes.
Yeah, when I was arrested, Trump was still president. It was a good time. The last time I paid for gas, um, before I was arrested it was $1.80. I come back and now it's like $5.
now he's still stuck at home, can't go anywhere now, right? So
Yeah. I'm trying to hopefully get a job here some
one
point.
of the other parts to remember with this too is that imagine being, you say about being locked up. Lucas is at the time of his life when you're supposed to be meeting your significant other. You're supposed to be you're possibly getting married. You're going to college. You're doing all these kind of life transitions from being a teenager to being an adult, and he's had the pause button hit. I mean, extreme prejudice pause button hit on this. And, and the frustrating part is just because at this point, Matt and I had taken over as his attorneys at this
Mhm.
point. And one of the frustrating parts is that we would regularly ask for reduction in bond conditions with the judge. And the judge was just adamant about not granting those conditions. And we were always opposed vigorously for any sort of reductions, despite the fact, because normally what happens, and of course, I know Nick knows this, but for the rest of it, if you kind of prove yourself that you're when you're in a bond, when you have these more heavier restrictions, as time goes on and you don't violate the terms of your bond, they'll start rolling them back, right? They'll start and I hate to call it giving you more freedom, but giving you, taking away those impediments that were there by a court order.
Reminding themselves that you're innocent until proven guilty is the way I like to say
details,
it.
Right? But the bond conditions were never lifted with Lucas in the entire time, or rolled back in any way. Despite, I think we asked like 5 times, and at some point you just have to say, and you get no 5 times in a row, you don't want to start, because the concern would be is that would they start being, and the judge is not supposed to be, but could a judge be punitive for asking too much?
Right.
So
yeah, and you have to consider the possibility that you're going to take this thing to trial, and you've got evidentiary issues to worry about. And there are little ways where it's like the judge is not supposed to be retaliatory to requests or motion work or anything like that. But you can find little retaliations in some of these cases where, oh, well, you know what? This is a close call on this evidentiary issue, but I remember that after I told them over and over, no, they came at me again with another request saying that my interpretation was wrong. Bam, you get blanked on something that might be really critical later on. So those considerations are tough.
Right.
Well, that
So
kind of
this is-
happened to us at one point too.
And of course, behind all of this is, yes, we're concerned about getting him a bond reduction, but our bigger concern, of course, is he's got a 20-year felony hanging over him in this
Right.
respect over a social media message share, and and of course during all of this as well. And I'm going to get back to Lucas here. We got the court said no on the First Amendment. We took an immediate emergency appeal on this, which is not very commonly done. And of course, it got sent up to the Michigan Court of Appeals, and we got to bring it up to the Michigan Supreme Court. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But, one of the things that we're also working on all of this is I'm doing appeals work on all of this, trying to get the law changed in Michigan, because there's a prior case that was not very favorable to our side. On top of that, Matt, the other attorney on this case, he's working on trying to get the case prepared for trial, having discussions with the prosecutor about, potential, because all lawyers, regardless of, no matter how tough your lawyer is, that I'm the toughest criminal defense lawyer, they have to be talking to the prosecutor about potential plea deals.
It's your ethical obligation.
What's that?
It's an ethical obligation to do
absolutely. And an absolute extreme necessity too. So, so there's a lot of pieces going on, and of course, the whole time, Lucas is in his basement effectively, and we knew where he was all the time. We could say that, right? But the point is that in addition to the heavy weight that Lucas is having on being confined, might say to ourselves, where do you put that in the hierarchy of concerns when you've got appeals going to higher courts trying to change the law and trying to develop a case and a defense to go to a trial? And these are hard, serious concerns. And then there's 2 of us lawyers doing, and we're pretty good at our work. It's a heavy load for that alone, on all of that, let alone, trying to deal with these bond conditions as well.
Absolutely. So I had said probably around 2 hours. We're a little over 2 hours, but I do want to get a little bit more going, if you guys have a little more time, and just we can kind of round out the story. Can we talk, Lucas, about your kind of experience through the appeals process and what's going on? Because Phil was laying out, you have this dual thing going, because you have the case. The judges basically made rulings that this is going to trial. Phil's now working on appealing that. Where, like, I'm sure you're hearing like all sorts of everything from all these lawyers being really irritating, telling you a bunch of answers that aren't getting you what you want, because all you want to do is like go not be arrested anymore. So how was that for you? Because this is you sitting at home now. You're not in jail, and you're just stuck getting these updates. What's this like?
So I mean, at home, getting the updates was a lot. I mean, it was a lot better than in jail because you couldn't get anything in jail. But I never blamed my lawyers for any of this crap.
No,
You know, it was
I
always
was joking, of course.
always the government. You know, doing what they do best, interfering with American citizens that are doing nothing wrong. But anyway, so yeah, I was trying my best, you know, to do the right thing and do not, you know, break the bond, and I didn't do anything wrong the whole time. But again, like you said, the judge was not, you know, budging, and you know, whatever. The Court of Appeals really failed big time with their decision and their publishing of the case.
I fully
I
agree with that
yeah
sentiment. The way, again, the jurisprudence on threats says effectively, if there is a valid, reasonable First Amendment protected use of the speech, you're not supposed to be prosecuting people. And that, to me, when I was very concerned when the Court of Appeals went the wrong way, and I think I talked to Phil on a different stream about the makeup of the judges, or maybe I talked to someone else about it, but it was a tough pull of the judge pool on that. You get, people don't know, Court of Appeals has several sitting judges, and you get 3 at random grabbed for it, and this one had 2 that would have been very, very tough.
yeah. Well,
To
so
go
what
on.
happened was we had the 3. They drew the 3 in the beginning to decide whether or not to hear the case, and 2 out of 3 said that they were going to hear the case. And as Phil and Matt told me, I guess that would usually mean that they would probably dismiss the case too. 2 out of 3, um, and then they redraw it again to actually hear it. So the 2 out of 3 said that they wanted to hear it, and then they redrew 3 again. And when they did that, the problem was, with my outstanding luck, they drew 2 random judges and 1 judge that was already drawn the first time, except for the fact that it was the 1 judge that disagreed and didn't want to hear it. So
Right.
and she wrote the dissenting opinion. And I don't think we should go into the details about it, but I'll just say that I think that they failed on every single legal front to do their job and their duty. And I that's as much as I'm gonna say about it at this point, I think. Um, just yeah,
Okay, so you go to the appeal, that
yeah, and that
comes down, then where are you? Like, not physically, like where are you at that point? Because I know I was bummed on this, because this is such a hard issue for a jury to determine. If is your speech appropriate? It's
oh,
such a weird
and
question for a jury, and it was like, for me, I'm like, I'm really hoping for this dismissal.
well, and also just so everybody knows too, the decision's on Google. You can find it. You just look up my name and you'll see the Court of Appeals publication. So it'll be
Mhm.
like People of the State of Michigan versus Lucas Gerhard or something. So you can find it yourselves and read the whole thing if you want. They argue some pretty interesting things. um, so I'm sorry, what was the question after that? I'm sorry.
Just so once the appeal is not successful, like
Oh,
what are you feeling, man? What are you thinking?
oh,
What's
I'm not
life like for
surprised.
you?
I mean, I am very pessimistic generally. I wasn't surprised. I think that it was the wrong decision, but again, just like Lake State, I wasn't shocked that this happened. Um, so we appealed after that. We appealed to the Supreme Court of Michigan. Um, and just to jump right to there, I guess, because you guys don't understand that the gap between the Court of Appeals was like a year. The gap after the Court of Appeals to the Supreme Court was like another year. So I mean, there's a whole year going by between these 2 events. And from what I understand about the Supreme Court was that they were about to take it. I guess they were like literally had something assigned to it and were about to send out a letter or something. But as soon as that happened, um, events happened in the world, and I don't think I should even really mention it specifically, but things happened. And it basically made them. It was a political thing, okay, and it made them get cold feet and drop the case. And I think that they failed 100% in their duty as well, because they let political um, uh, current events,
Concerns, yeah.
yeah, they let that impede the justice.
Didn't that also? I feel like there was a particular event that happened around most of your hearings and the appeal hearing and the Supreme Court hearing. They all had like a major media event that was near in proximity to them. Am I misremembering that, Phil? Like, I'm trying to be vague on this. I don't know how specific we can get.
Well, we can go. I mean, it was common knowledge for our side that the Oxford shooting occurred during
Ethan Crumbly, right?
Nathan Trump, Ethan Trumbly,
Crumbly, yeah,
Crumbly. I see him on TV all the time here in Michigan, but for me, I call it the Oxford shooting, but that for us that was a big deal because the charges that were going to come out of that shooting were the same charges that were in the same realm as the ones Lucas's were under, the same section of the code, the criminal code. And one of the things that happened, we were asking for some, constitutional protections to override these criminal provisions. And, we never try to say, from the outside as a lawyer who does appellate work, you have certain indicators that suggest the court is interested in the case or would be considering the case as opposed to one, they're not interested in at all. The indicators were there that this was going to be one of the cases that they were considering to take. Oxford happened, and then almost immediately the Court of Appeals rejected the decision. And of course, one of the logics behind this is supposed to be, well, if he's convicted, we can deal with it later, right?
Yeah.
Well, but the problem is Lucas got to be in jail. He's got to be in prison during that time to be able to appeal that kind of thing too. So I will say, as a lawyer and a First Amendment lawyer, particularly, the Michigan Court of Appeals decision and then the Supreme Court's decision not to take it up were not only just professionally, were personally disappointing to me. I spent a career trying to defend the First Amendment, and then you see these kinds of circumstances where I can't figure out how we became the one state minority where, Mississippi has got better protections on us than Michigan. And it's like, of course, now I'm probably going to get some comments now, but
sorry, Mississippi.
It's extremely frustrating because, one of the things, and I know you've talked about true threats. True threats are supposed to be a dividing line between a really high line that you have to cross before even a criminal prosecution can be commenced.
Right.
And what the Court of Appeals did was, and I know, Nick, you know this because we've talked about it in the past, is what they did was they said, well, that's not the judge's job. We'll let the jury decide this. Well, the whole point of the protection is so that you'd never get charged and have to take take that argument and be in jeopardy in front of the jury in the first instance.
Because a true threat, it's like a defamatory statement per se. Like this is a mixed question of fact and law. You've got facts around what is said, but you also just have a legal determination of whether something is said could be conceivably, not even conceivably, has met the probable cause level of being a true threat. So like, what things in Lucas's situation bring this to, it is highly likely that he was committing a true threat by making this post. That's where we're supposed to be before a charge is even considered. And I am reviewing everything. I've never even seen a conceivable way to get there under a true probable cause analysis. And I know I'm a little biased as a defense attorney and a lover of freedom and liquor, but at the same time, like I try and shed that and go, is there any way I can see this being a threat? And I can't. I can never get there.
One of the difficult, as a lawyer advocating on this, we submit a brief to the court, obviously, that lays out all the cases. We pulled cases from across the country of just the most atrocious examples of people saying the most god-awful things, including threatening to kill somebody.
Right.
All of them were held to be protected speech.
Yep.
Right. And that the cases should either the conviction was vacated or the dismissal should have been granted. And Michigan, they picked, and admittedly, there's a small number of these cases peppered throughout the country that go the other way. And of course, Michigan, in the opinion that the Michigan Court of Appeals drafted, picked up all these small crumbs to make this basically a jury question as to whether or not the First Amendment applies. I mean, and from our standpoint is that from doing the trial part of it is, I mean, do we have to give the history of the First Amendment to the jury to know how true threats came into effect so they know what a true threat is so they can make that determination? I mean, I don't even know how
That's
you
your
write jury
6
instructions for something like this, right?
That's your 6-hour closing argument. Right? Like,
History
Yeah.
of the world part 3, right?
yeah,
So
it's insane.
and and that's beyond. I know, we're talking a lot about Lucas and the personal part of it, and of course, as a professional, I'm trying to defend this. My co-counsel is trying to defend this. How do we go back to Lucas and explain to him that these guys just, the courts of Michigan have just missed the boat on this completely, and and of course for us with more and I know Nick, you know this. I know Lucas now knows this. The more uncertainty you have going to trial, the higher the risk, right?
Mhm.
I mean, even when you have really good certainty, you're always trying to avoid a jury trial. But when you have more risk where you don't even know what the law is going to necessarily be or what exactly the jury instructions are going to be, I mean, that creates a huge amount of risk that, if the jury goes the wrong way or they get confused or they don't understand or whatever, right? That
Mhm.
all of a sudden now the guy you've been called upon and have took the task to defend has suddenly got to spend how many years in prison for, and then you try to fix it with the Court of Appeals, go back to the same court that, I mean, not to be rude, but messed it up to begin with. Holy crap, right? So
Yep. No, it's that's the issue. But let's can we kind of zip into this the nature of the deal that's going on. Can we talk about that? Is
we can
that
talk a little bit about that. I have to say I'm not the most knowledgeable one on that, just because Matt is the one that did most of the negotiating, because I would call him the lead trial attorney on that. I think he's listening. I think he's listening in on you guys here on this today too.
Matt's always listening?
Matt, yeah, that's
Oh, why
right.
isn't he here? Come on, Matt.
Well, he's up north actually. He had to take the day off apparently. One day of vacation once in a while, but but the short of it is Lucas's has the cause, the actual cause of action, the actual charge of the terrorism charge has been dismissed. There is a replacement charge as effectively a placeholder, so that there is a time period by which Lucas is subject to provisional oversight, and then after that set amount of time, the case is fully dismissed, and there's no criminal conviction.
My understanding is the provisional oversight you mentioned in Minnesota, we would call it unsupervised probation.
Correct.
So you
Correct.
have this period of time where should the way you would violate this provisional oversight would be to basically be charged with and possibly even need to be convicted of some set of similar criminal activity. Not like a speeding ticket, but something at least coming up to a similar level. And if that violation were to occur, then things could be revisited. But if no violation occurs within that time period, everything goes away. And it's important to note that, like, it's not like regular probation where you're calling an officer every day, a parole officer, and checking in, and you're going in to do all these different tests and all that stuff. Is that accurate?
There is some oversight with this, but not to the same level that you would be as if you were a convicted individual in that respect. So I can't speak to the finer points of all that because I'm a civil attorney. I'm not the criminal attorney on this. But the important thing that came out of this is that if there's no conviction, right? There's no conviction on this.
No record either.
No record. I mean, other
Right.
than obviously the YouTube of us talking to Nick all day long, right? But the point of it is that this is it's always a rough decision, and I know Lucas struggled with this. It's a rough decision because we can say with certainty, if you go through this process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everything is, it's pretty easy requirements. I mean, we're not talking any onerous requirements. You're not sitting back in Chippewa County Correctional Facility. You're back at home. Your tether's off. Your life is resuming. You got some restrictions, but not much. That if you go about that for a certain period of time, everything goes away and there's no conviction, there's no nothing. Or do you roll your dice, go to trial, go for a completed, go for a not guilty, and if you don't hit it, you're looking at up to 20 years.
Right. And there's a comment in the chat. I've seen a couple similar, and I want to address it very generally because I think this is a misunderstanding of how the criminal justice system works and how trial works in criminal cases and in civil cases too. Someone said, I would have still fought it. You have the constitutional law on your side. Let me quickly dispel that notion. They were shown over and over that they did not, quote unquote, have the constitutional law on their side. That's the pretrial dismissal at the district court level, then going to the Court of Appeals and then the Supreme Court. That is where your constitutional law arguments and constitutional law decisions take place. In all of those instances, they were turned down, even though I believe that they were on the correct side of the Constitution in this and made compelling and legitimate arguments for it. The courts didn't bite. And if the courts don't bite, when you go back and you end up going to trial, every constitutional amendment you have in the world is made to a group of people who have no training in the Constitution and have no ability to rule on a constitutional issue. All they can do is say guilty or not guilty at the end of the day, and they consider a whole bunch of stuff. To briefly tie this into the realm of pop culture with the Johnny Depp trial, that's why it was so critical for Johnny Depp to get past the constitutional question of whether or not Amber Heard's statements were protected by the First Amendment. Once they got past that and said these might be defamatory statements, the jury then gets to use a whole bunch of everything, including their own personal feelings about these statements, to determine whether or not they were defamatory. In the same way, this jury that would be hearing Lucas's case would be able to bring literally anything into that jury room, their own prejudices, their own biases, to determine what Lucas's intent in communicating this statement was, whether it was a threat or not. If one of them had been threatened previously, or maybe was a victim of some sort of domestic abuse, they're bringing that baggage one way or another into a courtroom. You're long past constitutional questions when you're past pretrial dismissal and going into trial. Now you're in the psychology of, how do I convince these people that my side is the correct one?
And you do have the ability to bring up those constitutional defenses if he's convicted. And of course, then he's sitting in prison while we go through a 2, 3, 4 year appellate process, and then they come back and say, oops, we were wrong. The Constitution does apply here. We should let Lucas out of prison after he's been in there for 4 years. Right. With no, there's no compensation. They just say, they pack up your stuff in a plastic bag and say, sorry. And they don't get the sorry, but here's the door. We were wrong. Right.
Yep. No, I think, as you guys have described the deal, where there's no conviction, there's this period of considerably less restriction than what you've had going forward. The fact that you're on this show, right? Like, you could not have done this a couple months ago. That would have been against the bond provision that you had. So the fact that you're able to do this, that alone shows just how much different the conditions are. And again, it's the type of deal that every defense attorney I know would be begging to get this thing. In fact, I have been in the position of begging to get this kind of deal. So no, it's certainly, in my opinion, the right way to go.
One last thing I will say, and I know Lucas, it had to be satisfying for Lucas, but it was certainly satisfying for me when we got out of the courthouse the day that this deal was locked in, by putting it on the record with the judge. One of the things that was so neat was he got to cut his tether right away.
Yeah.
And that's been something that's been hooked to him for years. Years and years and years. That thing has been a leash on him, an electronic leash for all those years. We're literally outside the courthouse cutting that thing off there, and that was, for me, that was personally satisfying, but it had to be a lot more satisfying to Lucas, I would imagine. But
well, Well, let's see,
Well,
Lucas. So yeah, why
actually,
don't you talk about all that?
getting out, I I mean, as Phil knows, I did not prefer this way of. I wanted to go to trial. I did. I I don't want to say I was like talked into taking it and taking the deal. But I did it. I did it for the people around me, my family, and people like that. People who supported me the whole time. Everybody wanted me to do it. So there's always going to be part of me that kind of feels like I didn't have my vindication in court. I didn't get any in court justice. But when I got out, I'm always going to have kind of like this sort of regret, I guess. But I mean, it's not all so bad. When I got the tether cut off, I'll be honest, I didn't feel anything, when the judge said I'm free to go. Pretty much, I didn't say anything. I didn't feel anything. I just was like, okay. Um, they cut it off. The only thing I felt was, my foot felt a little bit lighter. That was it. I felt like I could do like kicks and stuff because my foot was like, felt light.
Well,
The
I can tell you,
tether.
as his lawyers, there was a lot of weight off our shoulders when he could cut that tether
Oh,
off. I can tell you
I
that.
bet. I bet. I
You
mean,
know?
it was definitely a lot of. I mean, I'm not saying it was a bad thing. I was glad it was off, but I wasn't. I didn't feel anything emotionally. I didn't. I was happy on um what do you call it, like a practical level. Like I just, okay, I can go out and I can do what I want now. But it doesn't feel right. I stopped off at Fort Machiela-Mackinac on the way home and just looked around, whatever, and I felt like I was breaking the law doing that. I can't sleep at night thinking, oh, the tether's not plugged in, right? I can't. When I go anywhere, I feel like I'm doing something wrong because you'd have to call them and let them know ahead of time you're going someplace. So it just feels wrong. It just doesn't. It's not as like I don't feel like emotionally as happy as you might think I would after all this time. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm ungrateful for the outcome. I mean, I really am, and I'm only in this position because you guys got me here. If it wasn't for all the support from your channel, Nick, and everybody else who supported me, I would never have made it. I just would not have had enough money, and it's unfortunate in this country that you need money to prove yourself innocent. And again, this was a political persecution. I on the search warrant, the affidavit search warrant, it said their reasoning, their justification was, we are aware of Gerhard and his extreme political views. That was their justification. So this entire thing was political, and I had to spend over $100,000 to prove myself innocent. And it didn't exactly have the outcome I wanted. I'm getting my rifle back eventually. I mean, that's great.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a provision that we didn't really talk about, is that at the end of this thing, they have to give your rifle back. And what happens a lot of times, even when people are cleared, those rifles get destroyed in the interim process. So that's kind of a neat feature for you, and you won't have to like try and fight to get your rights back, at least as a
yeah.
silver lining to how this is all working out.
Well,
But
as far as deals go, it was the best thing I could have ever gotten. But to
but
me, it was still a deal. It wasn't like, I don't know. Just
no, I get you. But my question though is what is next for Lucas? Because I mean, I know you got this thing coming up in September, the sentencing hearing. That's when everything gets put down on paper, done, finito, forever. Then you guys have hinted at some future sort of forums. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about for you, like, where do you go? I mean, you haven't been able to go for 3 years. Where do you go now?
yeah. Honestly, Phil, we got to talk about that. We need to have like a meeting or something. You could have somebody text me or call me about that. I don't know exactly where we stand right now, but I think we need to fix this law for sure. We cannot allow this to happen again to anybody else. I mean, that was part of the reason I kept trying to push this thing, um, and it ended up delaying this thing so far. But we got to fix it. I mean, this can't happen again. It just can't.
So let me just jump in and say, somebody, I was just kind of watching the stream while you're talking here, is someone said, well, Phil, this isn't about you. This is about Lucas. And one of the things that I think people fail to realize as an attorney, when you take on a case like Lucas's, this isn't just you clock in and clock out. You take on a cause like Lucas's. I mean, it is soul crushing when you can't get what you know is the right result because there are legal impediments in the way that should not be there, and you feel like you're failing your client, right? And the person that you've sworn to help, right? And I just, I don't want to particularly point out any particular viewer on this, but you cannot.
I will. You scumbag. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
Go ahead.
But I'm not trying to minimize Lucas's weight in all of this, but this is an incredibly hard process when you're trying to do what you absolutely know in your soul is to be the right thing to protect not just Lucas, but the 1,000 cases that come after him that are in a similar situation where Lucas has managed to rally a lot of support behind him, and thankfully. The next 999 are probably not going to have that same level. And if that law is not there, locked down to protect from overcharging, right, or bringing these kinds of charges like this, the next guy or next gal is going to spend 20 years in prison.
Well, and Lucas, you kind of talked about this in an abstract way earlier. Your initial attorney was a public defender, and public defenders, look, some of them are really excellent lawyers. And actually, some of the most trial experience you'll find in any lawyers come through prosecutors and public defenders, because that's what they're doing. They're going and they're doing these trials, and they're getting case after case after case after case, and they do their job. The main criticism I have for most public defenders is not really of, now, individual ones certainly can get really bad. Your experience was not a good one, 100%. Like my jaw is like,
I'll get you the transcript.
Oh God,
I will show you the transcript.
But the big criticism of the public defender's office from like a general perspective is they don't have the time to do what Phil just laid out. They can't take every case, treat it with the level of attention to detail and respect that or at least that's the idea, is that's the private attorney is the guy who can do that, who can move in with you on the issue. And that's, every time I've talked to Phil about this, when I've talked to Matt about it, you can tell these guys are in there with Lucas for him. And it's not this transactional thing, but there are cases like that. And in some counties, public defenders will have 250 files at a time, and they cannot do it. And that's why on this case, it was so critical to have someone in there who can really do this. I mean, a public defender is not going to do an interlocutory appeal to the to the Michigan appeals court and then the Supreme Court in the middle of this thing. They don't have the time and resources to do it. They've got 249 other cases. But so you mentioned changing the law, and I get all that, but I'm talking more like personal, like, what are you going to do? Like, not the dumb, like Disney World answer, but what are you going to do? I don't know how to, I can't imagine having 3 years of my life just shaved away and put on pause the whole time. You're just waiting. So what do you want to do?
Well, carry on like I always did, I suppose. I mean, like at Lake State, when everybody attacked me, the comments I made, I just went right back to class, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm going right back. I signed up for college. I'm going to college in a few days here. Finish it up. I mean, I should have graduated last year.
You don't have to say where. You're not going to the same school.
No, not.
That would have been kind of funny, but
well,
coming right back, mother effers.
I'll say this. I'll say this about that. I haven't completely ruled that out, but yeah, I'll say that right now. I'll talk more about that next time I'm on, if you have me on again, if I'm lucky enough, I guess.
Lucky enough. Come on. Of course you can come back on.
But yeah, I mean, go back to college and eventually get my degree, and my useless degree probably, and then get into a job and wherever I can. Like I said, I still want to be a policeman, but we'll see what happens. I don't have a record. Nothing. I think I'd be a better one because of all this. To be honest, I have like both sides of the coin, ingrained in me. So I'm more well-rounded than most of the other candidates would be. Most people go in there not understanding the other side of things, and so
So let me
I don't
let me
know.
add one more piece to this from a legal perspective, tying in because we are part of this process that resulted from this is because Lucas has no conviction. There's something in the law called the Heck Doctrine, Heck, and it's based on a court case called Heck from the U.S. Supreme Court. If Lucas is convicted of the crime, he can't later challenge the constitutionality of that crime. And so one of the things that comes out of all of this is by not being convicted in this court case, there is the opportunity, and we're not locking Lucas into this yet, but there is the opportunity for him to be able to legally challenge the law rather than through the criminal courts, through federal civil rights litigation.
Through like a 1983 claim.
Like a 1983 action, correct.
Yeah.
And so one of the other things that you can do when you are not convicted of the crime itself is it provides for the ability for you to attack that law later on through a separate legal action. And guess what? You don't have to be sitting in prison while that court case is working its way through the courts. So one of the things that as part of the decision making in all of this too is that if you take a plea that you plead guilty to the crime that you want to later challenge, you can't. It's the Heck Doctrine bar. You can't bring it later on. You can't challenge in that respect because you lost. It's a form of res judicata is really what it is.
Right.
So one of the things for this to the stars lined up the right way between a lot of things to make this thing work that Lucas is doing right now on this. And the reason why I take the time to say that is I think Lucas has got a bright future. Not only I'm really hoping, and this is my hope is we're not going to let him become a cop. We're not going to let that happen.
You keep saying that. You know how stubborn I am.
Lucas, I just there's a lot of other ways that you can bring security and justice and fidelity to law than by wearing a badge.
Like wearing a bedsheet diaper and running around with a torch.
It just
I'm
has
just
to
saying
always
it's a
go back to
possibility.
something with a diaper with you, doesn't it? Oh my God, so
every time. No, real quick. Someone in the chat mentioned this. I mentioned a 1983 claim. What that is where you use a federal law. It's federal section. 19 USC 1983 or
42 USC
42.
1983.
Oh God, 42 USC 1983, and that allows you to take a state actor to court for a violation of civil rights under the color of law, effectively. So when they do something that is violative of your civil rights, they purport it to be a legal action, but it turns out it's not a legal action. You now have a 1983 claim to get recompense in some way for the violation of your civil rights. That's what that means. Sorry for using too much jargon.
And frankly, what it is it gives you a federal court route as opposed to us going back through the Michigan appellate system for, similar, not exactly the same, but similar relief going forward. And so, I saw some of the comments where some of the folks are saying here where Lucas should go to law school, and I don't think that's a terrible idea myself.
You guys always, everybody's like, oh, be a lawyer. No,
you need people.
Be a
You
YouTube
need
lawyer.
people in the system who had the bad experience to know what it's like to be on the washed out end of this thing, right? Because otherwise, the system doesn't change. Otherwise, you get that same thing that happened with your first attorney, right? It becomes a clock in, clock out. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on the matter. And I could, Lucas can obviously do, and I encourage him to do whatever he's passionate about, but I know he can turn his passions into what happened to him here is a means to, I think, fix the law for not just, for himself, but for a lot of other people, and hopefully the First Amendment too on that. So.
All right. So if you guys have a little time, there are some questions in the chat. I'm gonna read all of the super chats, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and grab the ones that are specifically for either of you. We'll get those. let you guys take off, and then I can read the rest of them and close them out. But like ones that have nothing to do with the stream, I'm gonna do those last, and respect your time as much as possible. But let me hit these
I'm
real
not doing
quick.
anything.
Lucas, someone wrote on here you should join OnlyFans, and I think that was to you, not me. So
You know what? What the hell? Okay, I keep hearing that. I don't even know what the hell that is. I mean,
Guys, OnlyFans didn't exist when he went to jail.
like,
didn't
I
of
think
that,
somebody
didn't think of that.
somebody tried explaining it to me once. I can't remember somebody told me what it was, but I can't remember.
Oh,
Isn't it like some like online prostitution service or something? Like what the hell is
Close. It's close.
like
No, OnlyFans, how dare you? How dare you, sir? OnlyFans is a respectable company that allows content creators to connect with their fans for money. Now,
so like a
what-
whore?
no, not physically connect. Lucas, you're missing the grift of the internet. There's no actual touching. I mean, there probably is, but generally speaking, there's not supposed to be. What it's
Going to
most
hell.
known for is posting nude photos or videos, or sexually explicit photos or videos of yourself so that people can pay to see them, or just pictures of your feet or whatever. Like, oh, you could do the ankle bracelet OnlyFans and show like the spot on your leg that has no leg hair and is numb. Be like, yeah, here it is in the bathtub. Here it is on the beach. Look at my free leg. There you go. That's the OnlyFans for the internet. And I think you'd be surprised at how many people pay for it. And then you would also go to hell if you do that, just so you know.
It sounds like the degeneracy of the highest order.
Listen. If the First Amendment protects that, come on now, right? So,
Okay, so answer that question. No, thank you.
anyway,
Okay.
go ahead, Nick. We got your other questions. We're stealing your time here. For
No,
your
not
other ones.
mine.
Oh
Not
well,
mine.
go ahead. Oh no, go ahead. Let's,
I'm taking y'all's time. I don't.
No,
I mean,
no, well.
My
I'm
time.
here.
I've done 3 years. I can do 10 more hours of this. I don't care.
when you are done with everything in September, you can come on for as long as you want, and we'll have a blowout. It'll be stupid. It'll be fun. We'll talk about anime. Anime was invented while you were in jail, so you've never heard of it. Aiden Bergen says, "Hey Nick and Lucas. Lucas, I'm from Michigan, specifically Grand Rapids, which is trying to be California so much. I
Oh,
hate it so much."
yeah, Grand Rapids. I know a cop there, actually. Funny enough, but yeah. Hello, hello
That's
Grand
it.
Rapids. Hi. I'm sorry. I'm
Slag-
sorry you live here with me. It kind of sucks here.
Slaglust wants me to do this in Kermit voice. Hey, Lucas, if you could fight 2 Rittenhouses or 6 because he's a manlet Rosenbaums, which would you choose, and what snowflake melter would you prefer?
Okay, for legal reasons, I'm not sure I should answer that.
Would you fight 2 Rittenhouses or 6 Rosenbaums? That's
Rosenbaum was the fucking
He was
whatever.
the guy. He was the first one who got shot, who also was a kid toucher.
Okay, well, in relation to this question, so I'm not trying to get myself any trouble here again. Again, this is still ongoing, but
Well, he's
if I
dead and
had,
there's only one of them, so you
well,
couldn't.
if I
actually
had to
fight 6.
choose, I'd fight him. Obviously, Kyle seems like a good dude. I'd like to meet him one day. Hopefully, that'd be cool. But yeah, I mean, yeah, 6 of them.
I saw that one video too of Kyle Rittenhouse that was excluded from evidence, where he was defending his sister's honor or whatever, and he looks like he could throw down a little bit. So yeah, I'd fight 6 Rosenbaums too. I'm with you on that answer. Moist John asks, when will the Upper Peninsula just become Wisconsin? Very important question.
Hopefully
Never.
soon. I
Never.
hope soon. I don't want it.
we
Take
traded away
Take
Toledo
it.
for it. I think we got the better end of the deal.
Take it.
Oh,
You get to get
oh.
both. I don't care.
Now we'll see the.
I
comments
don't
explode.
want the UP anymore. You guys can have it.
Mr. Armageddon says, thank you, Lucas and Philip, for the interview. Like most people, I viewed this as an injustice. Congrats on the outcome and best wishes.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Let's see. Good Logic says politics used to be akin to cards versus Cubs. Oh, the Cardinals versus Cubs. I hate them, but they are an important part of the process. In 2008, the right was demonized to their dangerous evil. That evolved to evil must be removed. Great seeing 3 champions of liberty together. Oh, I think he means us. That's nice.
Oh, I'm a champion. Yay! Thanks, Joe.
Let's see. Hold on. I'm looking for the next one. Let's see.
Can't wait to see Joe again too. It'll be fun.
So we've kind of answered this one, but it came in earlier. Stabby McStabswood says, after years of false imprisonment, I'd be hard pressed to be happy with some deal for a lesser charge. Does this deal kill any suit against the state? And as we've explained and as Phil laid out, no, it does not. And there's no conviction at all for the charge. So it's not a typical guilty plea deal. In fact, there's no guilty plea, if I understand it. It's a plea to the specific fact of posting the Snapchat and the comment on the Snapchat.
Yeah, which I never argued.
Right.
I mean, I always said it.
So that's one of the things about this deal, which is unique and makes it such a valuable thing, in my opinion, is you're pleading to what is true, that you've and is consistent with everything that's been true the whole time. Like, if there were questions about you posting the Snapchat, I mean, there would have been a whole different process going all the way back to the beginning. But since that was something you posted and what you said was said on there, now all you've had to do is just admit, yes, as not only did I say it, I had the right to say it. Like, that was the whole idea. So that's what's going on with this. So I hope that answers your question, Stabby. Eric Wolfrick says, you wish to melt the whites. Might we interest you with a Mr. Matthew Harris? Oh my goodness. Someday I'll introduce you to one of the craziest books you'll ever see. I'm not sure what that is. Well, it's a guy who is actually, interestingly, he is under arrest and will soon be facing trial for his true threats. He actually emailed the faculty at UCLA threatening to murder them with guns, and actually tried to buy one for the purpose of killing them. So he had an actual threat that was direct to several different people, and he's going to go to trial on that one. But he's also literally insane. And so I'm kind of curious if they're going to get him ruled competent or not. The Squid says, this story makes me finally want to use my GI Bill just so I can challenge the beliefs and opinions of weak young people and watch them melt down. Keep in mind, I'm 30 now.
That was part of the fun. That was part of the fun. I mean, I'd be lying if I said, I didn't, enjoy kind of like challenging these people's beliefs in these echo chambers,
Yeah, well, that's what college was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like, you challenge your own beliefs, but you also simultaneously challenge everyone else's. It was never supposed to be punitive for wrong think. It was supposed to embrace all think. Like, that's been the purpose of academia forever. When ideas go unchallenged and unchallengeable, you don't have education or advancement. You have stagnation.
Yeah.
Anger on the Red Angel says, lawsuits all around, my man, from the college to that Oompa Loompa with the shotgun.
God, that's a new one. I've heard a lot of things. I never heard that one before. That's funny.
Rob Lee says, this kid has very poor judgment. He'd make a terrible cop. So there you go. Now we know that since you have bad judgment, you should be a lawyer instead.
Bad judgment, hey. No. I only judged the fact that I had a constitutional right to say something that I said. I mean, I guess that's bad judgment. I mean, I think the whole point of this case was that they erred in their charges in the initial. Yes. So that I don't think so. That was the thing. I see what you're saying. I do get what you're saying. I get what he's saying though.
Get what he's saying. Never give credit to the chat. They're always wrong.
I love the chat though. The chat has been like a beacon of humor for me for the last 3 years. My friends would tell me what you guys said, and it's nice.
Moist John says, ban assault water guns, melts all the snow children.
The snow children.
Gunner says, we need sensible Under Armour control. That's in response to your irresponsible wearing of that shirt backwards.
Oh yeah,
William Tolley says, we're testing our university speech policy this Friday when we host Jared Taylor. If you're in Phoenix, please come out. It's free. Rescue Michigan, thanks for covering this case, Nick. We're never going to stop fighting this case until all of the damage has been reversed. I know that's Adam.
Adam. Yep.
He's a good
Thanks,
dude.
Adam. Thanks, Adam. And he's been a big help this whole time. You guys got to check him out too. If you're from Michigan, especially, check him out.
Hey, y'all suggests that you should write a book called Ticket for Terrorism.
That's a good title. That's a good one. I've been told that everybody I know has told me to write a book about this, but I wouldn't even know what to talk about. So, I mean,
they also said that you're lucky to be alive and to give you a kill doser. Well,
yeah, I don't know if Chippewa County would like that.
No, we'll have the metaphorical legal kill doser of court motions is what we're after here. Rochester Cycle Cam, I'm about an hour behind, but started from the beginning. This is disturbing to hear. Really hope you get some sort of vindication from civil suits. Rogue says, Lucas, bro, these crazies were trying to kill you for not conforming to their worldview. They tried everything they could to make it look like an accident. Gentleman Sausage, amazed at the composure of this kid not to wear a hockey mask.
Nice. Wear a hockey mask.
Like Jason Voorhees.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I cannot comment on that one. Not right now.
Execution says, this is all bollocks. I was arrested because of my ex-wife's false allegations. I'm a UK citizen, was just visiting. I went through hell in the US jail system. If only I had house arrest as an option. So
at least I got, take what you can get. Sorry that you faced our literally our criminal justice system. So, and
I'll read this one because it's for you, but you don't have to answer. Kiernath says, is Lucas going to sue the land whale that reported him? Like I said, you guys have been pretty hush on what the actual future is. So I don't think you need to state anything on that. But like I said, it was for you, so I wanted to go ahead and read it. Where are we? Hold on. Almost through most of the questions for you here. Moncor002 asked if you had the lawyer from Idiocracy that was during your description of the beginning.
That was just like, so that courtroom scene in Idiocracy was just like my what do you call it?
Your arraignment hearing?
Yeah, my arraignment and like the whole public defender deal. Like in the scene, he's like, my client's guilty because he's a fag or something like that. That's what he says. Or, or just look the way he dresses, or look how he looks. That's pretty much, yeah.
Wait, this one right here.
You're my lawyer?
Says here you robbed a hospital. Why'd you do that?
Yeah, I'm not guilty.
That's not what the other lawyer said.
yeah. That's pretty much, yeah. That's what I felt. And another comparison would be actually, I'm not going to get into that one either. Never mind. Yeah, that was pretty. That's a good point.
One day we'll hear all the. I
cannot wait till I could speak freely.
Hunter X07, Lucas needs to become an engineer so he can design or make industrial equipment like P100 snow melter. Look it up, Nick. No, I think I know what that is. It's like a blowtorch that you use to melt your driveway off or whatever. That thing's awesome.
I'd like to get a flamethrower or something. That sounds pretty cool. Like just to melt this ice off the driveway. We could use it up here.
Do you know what I want? They make these like driveways that have like a high viscosity like fluid that pumps under them that basically keeps them above freezing.
They have them in Holland. I think it's Holland, Michigan has them under their sidewalk, so the snow never collects on them.
Yeah, I want that on my driveway. Actually, I want a walkout balcony from my bedroom that has that, so I can always just walk outside and have warm feet even in the winter.
Sounds like a first world problem you're having there, right? So,
well, I said I wanted it.
You wanted it.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not a problem that I don't have it, but it's on my. I also want a Lamborghini.
Cold walking outside in the middle of winter. How terrible.
No, I mean that also happens in third world countries, Phil. Timothy Reaper, Lucas, I think I still want to be a police officer. Lawyers, you will be assimilated. And Bushwhacker, wait, here we go. This is the last one. He says, oi, oi from London, England. If you guys need a boatload of tea to be dropped off at a port, I have tons of it if it helps to get the fires stoked.
Send it.
Oh my goodness.
Send it, yeah.
All right. I think that's all the questions that are specific to you guys. Again, I want to respect y'all's time and everything. And Lucas, when you're done in September and everything is put to bed and it's a good time, I will happily have you on. We can have a very fun stream that involves like laughter and freedom and anime or whatever. I'm gonna get you watching anime. There's no
Oh
choice.
no.
No, but yeah, is there anything you guys want to say? And then, like I said, I'll let you go. I'll read the rest of the super chats that came in because that's kind of my custom on the show. But is there anything you guys want to say as kind of a sign off note?
You can go first, Phil, if you want.
I was just gonna say it's been a long road for Lucas, and I can't say I can't be any possibly to be happier to see Lucas on the internet here today, because it's been a long road, and my fear is he's going to have no internet while in prison. Just the way our laws in Michigan had come down. So I'm so happy that to see him where he is today, and I know he's going to be on doing some great things as he lives his life in the future here. So I'm just extremely happy that things turned out as they did.
No, I'm
Lucas?
happy I'm happy the way things turned out, and and thank you to Phil and Matt and all my lawyers, Mark and my dad and my ma, my brother and all my friends that helped out. Because it really shows you who your real friends are. People drop off and stop caring after a while. And the people who stuck by me, I'm gonna, appreciate them a lot more. And I know I'm in a better spot now that I know how the world works and who the real people are around me. And hopefully, this next month it goes well and I can come back on and speak freely about a lot of the topics that I actually couldn't cover here. And it gets even this whole story was a lot more extreme than I've even said before, but there's just a lot of stuff I can't talk about right now. So
Yep, and like I said, ongoing litigation. We always want to be very cautious until everything is finalized. And once it all is, then everything can be talked about fully. You would be welcome back at any time, Phil. Of course, if you ever have any issues that you wanna hammer on about, I always like talking to you as well.
I'm not sure it's a good idea. You and I start getting on a show and start drinking and I don't know that.
It sounds like the best idea in the world, Phil.
Civilizations would end. Like, this is bad, right? So,
well, from what Matt says, that you and me, Phil, are like the same when it comes to legal stuff.
That's part of the problem, right?
Yeah.
I have no other real skills but to yak. So, wait,
man,
wait a minute. What? Isn't that what? Yeah. Lawyers.
Wow. Like I said, you would be welcome on the show, Lucas. Of course, welcome back. And when I say you'd be welcome back after your thing, like, it's not like, well, you'd be welcome back for one more time or whatever. Like, you're welcome, man. I think your story's really inspirational. It's shitty what happened to you, but like, here you are. You're not like pulling your hair out and reading manga or something. Like, you seem kind of just normal. Like, you've been through this awful thing. And you're like, yeah, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move on, and it's going to be cool. And I think you got a lot going for you just with that alone. And this would have broken so many people, and here you are. So credit to you, man.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it, Nick. I do. If you want me on, I could be a political commentator. I can drink with you. I could do what I drive out there and see you if you want.
You would be 100% welcome.
Something about a 500-foot minimum, something in that law in Minnesota.
500-foot minimum of what?
You got to be kept away from other people at all times. With
me?
Isn't there? Did I read something?
No, they actually take extension cords and tie me to people specifically. That's the punishment that other people get.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. They just wrap me up like on a backpack and I'm just stuck to them, yakking at them all day. No, but legitimately, Lucas, if you and your dad wanted to make a road trip out here, we'd make something happen. I'd put you guys up in a hotel if necessary.
All right. I appreciate that. That's cool.
It'd be a ton of fun. So, well, gentlemen, I will bid you farewell, and to the chat, hang around for a little bit. Going to finish up the super chats and talk about tonight's show. And Yeah. Thanks again so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. We'll talk again soon.
Yep. Bye. How do I
Peace.
leave? Wait.
Just
Oh,
you click the leave studio. There we go. All right. Very awesome. No, I didn't. Here's the thing. You guys are like, oh, you didn't ask the question. You didn't ask the question. Not a single super chat asked the question. That's the tradition on this channel. That's the tradition. You didn't ask him. So with that, though, the next appearance, I expect he will get asked the question several times. But this one was, I did not know when setting up the interview, I didn't realize that they still had the sentencing hearing to come up. And once I heard that, I decided to keep it as still jovial, but a little bit more on the professional side and really being risk averse, because this has been an extremely sensitive place for Lucas to be in for 3 years. As we discussed, all of the hearings have had unfortunate timing, political decisions, bad judgment, in my opinion, by judges, vindictive prosecutors, all sorts of stuff has caused trouble for Lucas. And the last thing on earth I want to be is some way causing trouble. So kind of kept it above board. If we get to have him back on after his hearing in September, we'll have the full on fun, loose lips show and just really have a blast and get to know all the juicy details that need to be just kind of kept under wraps for now. Okay. So we'll do that at another time. Also, I was trying to keep this thing down to, I told them 2 hours. A little optimistic on my own ability to not talk, but real quick, I'm going to read the super chats. We will have a show tonight. I believe Drexel is actually coming out here tonight. He was not going to because he was going to go to the Minnesota Late Gay Fair, but now instead sounds like he's coming here. So it looks like we've got a Drex stream probably tonight. Should be fun. I get to try out this new Rodecaster with 2 mics and 2 headphone inputs. That'll be great. Yes, I do have to go get mic cables. I'm literally on my way to go do that right now. Actually, you know what? I might not have to. We'll figure it out. But we'll get all of that figured out, and we will have a good time with that. So that's tonight's show. Remember, tomorrow, 2 p.m. Central Time, will be another interview. This time with Joshua Moon Null, the owner of Kiwi Farms, the villain of the internet. He was a boy in Florida until he became the illustrious international terrorist known as Janny Jersh. What was his crime? What wasn't his crime? From tranny busting to zoophile exposing. The captain of defamation on the internet, Joshua Moon. Anyway, so he'll be on tomorrow. We'll have a good discussion about what is going on with Kiwi Farms being very much in the public space right now on Twitter. Thousands of people who have never heard of this website are suddenly hearing about it. I'm sure it will be a disaster. So that'll be great. Let's see. Greg McNeely says Viva Fry would have asked the question. Dave, Viva, will interact with even non-super chats, unlike the Ricada Law #1 grifter. By the way, Styx Hexenhammer's cat is trying to overtake me on the grifties. I will not let that weirdo's cat beat me out. Well, I mean, there's not much I can do about it, but please remember to vote for Nick Ricada as the #1 grifter in the world on grifties.com. Okay, let's hit the rest of these super chats, and then we'll call it an evening at that point, and until tonight's show, of course. All right. Andrew Wahoo says, I thought I'd point out that Elden Beast is way easier with Margot's Great Rune. 80 strength, 60 endurance, 50 vigor. Quitter. The Mimic tier maxed out Rivers of Blood and loads of Arcane and Dex. Why do you have 50 vigor? You some kind of baby? Next, Adam Trapp says this is some serious breaded behavior. Brandon Lesko says penguins are getting taller. Soon they will be taller than giraffes again. Very true. Very true. Jensen says, you see, Tim got Lectern Guy on his show yesterday. I did not. It's not a judgment. I don't watch Tim Pool because I don't really watch any political content on YouTube because I just don't have time. Next, Mr. Squiggles says, I would have answered just to bust their chops. Yes, who else is going to make sandwiches at the police station? I'm not sure exactly what that was in response to, but it did happen. Mr. Armageddon says, I'm sorry, Nick. I don't know what you're sorry for, but you probably deserve to be sorry. DCV Titan, the fact that Trump used it means it's mainstream. Oh, the snowflake comment. Let's see what's next. Hold on, gotta find the next one because I read a lot of these. Luis Cuevas says it's Latin X King, you bigot. True. Oh yes, Mr. Armageddon. My super chat was a joke about how you said Canadians will apologize to you if you get angry at them. That's true. Thank you for apologizing. Let's see next. Juan says, for answering my post, thank you, sir. Yes, I did answer your question in the chat there, and I hope the answer was satisfactory to you. Almost done. Kiernoth was the last one. Okay. Mega Mobas says, here in St. Joe County, Michigan, our public defender's office is actually pretty good for the caseload they have. Not that I have any experience with them. Lol. Locknav Livok says you should get potentially criminal to talk about faulty prosecution in Ohio versus Matthew Moore. Tomorrow VI, nearly a complete legal cluster fail for Lucas. Wait, what? They got the type of result you want to get. I would, again, to defend this decision that Lucas made one more time, because I know, like, he's young and he wants to fight, and I appreciate that very much. And you can hear it and see it written all over him. And there are a lot of people who would want him to fight, but I mean, I would take this deal 10 days out of 10. You 20 years or no conviction. I mean, those are the two ends of the spectrum you're on. You can guarantee no conviction, or you can potentially go to prison for 20 years. It's really fucking hard to convince me that you don't do this with no conviction at all. Like that, and the ability to continue the fight. And if you lose at trial, you don't get to really continue the fight. So it's, to me, it's still the right one. Donald Trust and Believe says, please ask Smitty to join tonight. We need Smitty and Drex. I got to see what Drex is up to and what Drex is up for. But we'll figure it out. All right, guys. Oh, wait, no, we've got some chats over on Odyssey. El Gonzo says, also, I would like to introduce a motion to rename your firm to Unbreaded Law. I'll take it under advisement. Sicarius something says, wait, can I actually see the names if I go here? I can. Here we go. Oh, Gonzo 1000 also says, can Lucas either sue or get that public defender disbarred? That BS is Australia levels of loony. I don't think he would have a full-on malpractice claim, but my God, what a disaster. I want to move forward with a bond hearing. We want to do the mental health evaluation because my client's basically a murderous psychopath. Like, what are you doing? The odd thing is, shockingly, that might not be non-permissible, which is just, that's wild. It should be. It should be disbarable, in my opinion. Vela says, bruh, give this kid all the super chat money from tonight. Griff for a good cause for a change. No, I will not do that. Velas, how dare you? Sicarius Anatar. Hey, Nick, if you can, please review the federal injunctions against the military and its treatment of us religious unvaxxed. Love you in a gay way. I can look. I don't know. I haven't looked at that in a long time. But I know originally, like, they were just going hard on anyone who was not vaccinated. Zalcor07 says, does Gerhard endorse the Matt Harris? He doesn't know who he is. Lucas hasn't been able to watch this show for 3 years. He's been locked up and he couldn't use a technology device like this. I guess in theory, it could maybe have been put on a TV through like the YouTube app or something. I don't know if it ever was. But he couldn't actually like watch the show. So anything he's ever heard about stuff just comes from either people he knows directly who have watched the show, or if his dad caught part of an episode or something and talked about it. But I don't think, there's like a ton of like the lore is there for him. So we're going to have a lot of fun in September introducing him to Matthew Harris and stuff like that. Zalcor7 says, still willing to sell himself to the devil after all this. Just like that, he earned my enmity. I wouldn't be too hard on him. Here's what I'll suggest. There are very idealistic people in this world. Even when they get shown a shit sandwich, they go, well, now that I've eaten this shit sandwich, maybe I should go make the sandwiches. That way, at least I'll be the guy who knows to make a sandwich that doesn't have shit on it. And they don't realize that it's kind of weird because he half realizes it, I think. And the way he talked about, well, I don't blame the cops. They're doing their job. They were doing this. They were doing that. It's the system that makes the sandwich shitty. Like the guy who works at Subway can go home and make a normal, decent sandwich, probably, or maybe the woman can. It's not the person making the sandwich that makes a Subway sandwich garbage. It's Subway. Being like an idealistic cop to go like be really good at your job, sure, but the system forces you into, if nothing else, policing your fellow man, which is just not within me to do. So, he's got a long time to figure this stuff out, though. Zalcor07 says, just take that Gadsden flag off, bro. The LARP is cringe. There are a couple more super chats that just came in. The Squid says, I'm glad Lucas got the deal he got. There's no way of knowing if he'd have the same luck as Rittenhouse going to a jury trial. Best outcome by far. The only better, the more preferable outcome than the deal he got would have been, wasn't going to be possible at this stage, would have been the pretrial dismissal that should have happened. The judge should have pretrial dismissed the claim. The prosecutor should have withdrawn the case. Either one of those would have been the correct outcome, and they chose not to. Following that, the Michigan State Appeals Court should have overturned the failure to dismiss the case. And finally, following that, the Michigan Supreme Court should have taken the case and overturned as well. But unfortunately, once those things don't happen, you get down to this. And I think that by the time this thing's going to trial, he got the best outcome that's possible. C Hoodie, CL Hunter, Rumble is number 6 on the App Store. It's getting bigger. Well, there you go. Stephanie Tam, shoot, I forgot to vote on Grifties. Please don't be like me and vote. It's important. Well, you can go vote right now. There you go, guys. That's the show for this afternoon. We will catch up tonight for a Drex stream. Should be very, very unbreaded. And we'll have a good time there. Until then, see you soon. Peace. Peace.
drinks a fair bit, but you realize that it just helps get his noggin jogging along. With his glass by his side and his kids asleep tight, we'll hear some lost-plaining tonight. With his microphone muted, we'll laugh at this boomer until he explains it's all part of the plan. Watch his face become redder as he becomes meta, raging at idiots from Twitter and Gerland. From the white shores of Maine to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed, make the law what we have now. Oh, his lady is fair, and she handles herself with the grace of one who has borne many children. As the wife of a lawman, she makes sure that he has the time and the place to provide for them there. So pour out an Ardbeg, a Balmore, a Lafroig, the spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter, as we hear lost planning tonight. From the white shores of Nairn to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed, to make the law what we have now. Oh, the guests are all plentiful, from Dante to Drexel. They bring their perspective and spice to the mix. But the reason we're here and the one that we cheer is the one who is showcasing us his career. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter, as we hear lost planning tonight. From the white shores of Nairn to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed,